I'm the Uncanny Dayspring,
I'm the adjectiveless Flinkman.
and we are here today for a fun and special episode of Power of X-Men, where we're gonna interview each other and dive into our origin story and give a little background on our nerdum, as well as taking some listener questions.
Yeah, and I mean, we did, way back when in the Generations of X days, we did sort of do a little bit of an introduction, but I realized that the familia has grown quite extensively since
Mm.
then. So, I think it's a good idea for us to let the fam know, what's going on with Flink and Dayspring.
Well, everyone always wants to know our origin story. How did we become friends? And that episode of Generations of X, we do still have it out there. And so many people listen to that because when you start hitting up like people that you like on social media, you go to their origin. And
Yeah.
that, oh my God, it's just such a great episode. And it's funny, I was listening to it maybe during our falling out when we broke up. But we had so much fun doing that, and I think let's give it to a new set of familia who's tapped in the last
Yeah.
few years.
I mean, we had so much fun, we did it twice. So why not do it a third time?
Didn't we do it 3 times? So did we
Yeah.
record it twice?
I think it was only twice. I think it was only twice. We recorded that one twice because I was unhappy with it, which is a shocker. And then we had to record the Demand a Martini WandaVision prologue episode because someone's computer shit the bed.
Yeah. Well, okay. Listen, bitch. I was in the tub editing an episode, and like the laptop fell into the water. Have I ever told you the true story about
No, no, you just told me that it
it?
died. You never told me that you were responsible for anything. You were just like, oh, I don't know. It just stopped working. I'm like, the
Mm.
truth comes out 4 years later. I see. I
I was
see.
okay. No, listen to me. It was during lockdown. I had one of those wooden planks for the
Yeah.
tub, and we
Yeah.
had a jacuzzi in the Hoboken apartment. And literally, the thing just collapsed, and the laptop was submerged in water. By the way, this is like 3 laptops ago because the amount of laptops I have lost and broken since then has been next level.
It's insane. But the laptop that I am using right now is literally 9 years old. It's a dinosaur. So, I take care of my things.
Well, I was really upset at the time because we had just started podcasting together, and we, you know, I have a lot of pride in our chemistry and our mic presence, and some of the episodes that we had there, I really wanted to put out there, and sadly, they're submerged and they're like the
R.I.P.
Titanic. They're lost in the depths of water.
Taken out by Hydro Man.
But I think this episode, let's chat. Let's ask each other some questions. Let's dive into our fandom, our
Yeah.
origin story. And the Familia sent quite a few questions. Some of them, I have to tell you, one of the questions that came in, and it came from Rich, who we love Rich so much over in the
Yep.
UK. He
Yep.
asked a very salty question. And I was like, oh, he knows our history. He knows our friendship.
Poking the
And
bear.
he was poking that bear. He's like he wants us to have another meltdown on
It's
camera.
fine. It's fine. We're you're 40. I'm 39. We have evolved and grown. We are true adults now. So I think we can handle whatever salty questions Displayed Once wants to throw our way.
Do you remember when we were talking about X-Men 97 and when it was going to be coming out in like 2024? Your immediate response to me was like, "Oh, you'll be 40 then."
Well,
And I was like
I mean,
37 at the time, 37, 38. And I was like, oh, you fucking asshole.
yeah, no, sorry about that. I just keep it real. What can I say? I just keep it real. I mean, and listen, 40's not so bad, right? You got to
No,
tell
I
me it's
love
not so
40.
bad because I'm next.
You know what? The only thing tell you about 40 is that I did notice you wake up that morning and you get this automatic download where you're just like, I don't give a fuck about things. And also your body starts showing its age a little bit. And I used to be able to go a couple months without, like, I haven't had Botox in like 6, 7 months, and now I can see the wrinkles. That's
You
the
can move
only
your
thing. I
forehead.
can move my forehead, but like before I could go like 9, 10 months without Botox and I'd be fine. And now I'm like, oh, I'm due. That's the only thing. Other than that, it's great. I would not trade in being 40.
Older
So
and
your turn.
wiser.
Okay. My first question for you is how did we meet and what was the vibe in comics during that era?
Okay, so we met on the Fwoosh, which for those who don't know is an old school action figure forum, the unofficial Marvel Legends toy board or whatever the full name of it there is. And I mean, I honestly I don't. I mean, this was the MySpace days, okay, and I don't even really remember how we found each other on MySpace, but we did, which of course led to AIM, which of course led to texting, and I mean, we sort of. Became had weekly Wednesday text marathons talking about comics. I mean, it's a lot like what we do, what we do here, just via text. And I mean, sometimes we would even like call each other. You'd be eating your $5 foot long from Subway, and I would be, chilling in my roach infested, shithole apartment. And I mean, yeah, we've been doing this for 20 years across, various formats. And I mean, the vibe of the comics at the time, that was definitely the Joss Whedon astonishing X-Men era. Or we'll just call it the John Cassidy astonishing
John
X-Men
Cassidy.
era. We're just gonna excise that first part. And I mean, we were tripping about, oh my God, they're gonna make Emma a villain again. That's so reductive. Like I in particular, I think was pretty upset about that. But I mean, shortly thereafter, we got Mike Carey and Messiah Complex, and the vibes were good. The vibes were good. Honestly, they were quite a bit better than they are now.
Yeah, that in retrospect was such a wonderful era of comics because it is post Morrison, it is post House of M. The mutants are in a state of desperation, which is great storytelling. And
Yeah.
finally, after what was a long period of no new mutants, a mutant messiah is born. And that crossover was amazing. And of course, the speculation of Jean being the Messiah baby, everything. We're not going to get into that. We're not going to get into that at all. But it was such a wonderful vibe. And you were the first person that I met that I was able to have a really great, deep conversation with about comics, other than my husband. But
Yeah.
you in particular were one of those friends that even though we disagreed, we liked each other's opinion. And we disagreed. We are very civil right now because the fights we used to get into on like AIM, on MySpace, like we used to
Uh-huh.
really like I don't know about you, but I used to carry those fights in me.
Oh
Like
yeah.
how dare he say this issue of Academy X is really good? You know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous in retrospect, but we had something that was really interesting and unique and very rare among fans, which is like we disagree. We want to hear each other's opinion and we can come back later. And I think there was also we had the same perspective on like associating with people who may have be like they may have like really extreme controversies, controversial opinions like, oh, why are Shatterstar and Richter kissing? And us just rolling our eyes, being like, did these people ever read an X book? Like, why is this an issue for you? And so it was like healthy disagree. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm going in
No,
circles
yeah.
here.
No, it makes sense completely. Like we didn't, we didn't agree necessarily. We don't still agree on like very surface level things, but I think our understanding of the X-Men and our love for it and like the way we read, deeper into it than we probably should these days.
Well,
I think that vibe is correct.
but I'm sorry, I'm like pointing at you. But that's exactly it, which is like we read deeply into the source material
Yeah.
and we have an understanding of these characters and we care about these characters and we want to see these characters kind of move forward. You were also on my top 8. Was it top 8 or
Oh
top
yeah,
10 in MySpace? You were
it was
definitely
eight, top
up there,
eight.
top 8. And your username on the Foosh was Ultimate Phoenix, and it was Phoenix with a goatee.
Yep,
And I
yep.
think was that moniker assigned to you? I think that moniker
It
was assigned
was.
to you.
It
Okay.
was because back in those days, you had to earn a moniker. You couldn't just pick one. I don't even know if that's a thing at this point anymore. But yeah, if you were like a long time poster, they would give you like a custom little, moniker under your username. And what was I remember your AIM scream name, but I don't remember what your Fwoosh name was. It was something to do with Dayspring, right?
Yeah, it was Nate underscore Dayspring. I don't
Okay.
remember the moniker underneath it. It was something about like the Messiah or Gene's Child, something like that. But I don't remember
Good
the,
for
the
you.
moniker. And of course, because the Foosh got rebooted a couple
Yeah.
times since then, so like you lost all those original posts. Like it was such a like a badge of honor to have like 1,000 posts and hitting like gold level or whatever the monikers were, um, or the tiers, excuse me. So I couldn't even go back and log in to see. And there were so many people I met on the Foosh. I got a custom Nate Gray from someone, and I'm forgetting his name. It was like
The
Joel or Joe.
disrespect.
And it was my favorite. I still love that custom figure. I still have it till this day. But I wish we could log into the Foosh and see some of those old
Yeah.
messages. I mean, some of them are I'm sure I would be mortified and ashamed of.
Just a little, just a little. Yeah, I think so. I think so. I don't need to go back and revisit, 20-year-old Flink on in his ultimate Phoenix identity.
I want to say I did write an article for the Foosh in the summer of 2013 where
Wow.
I was like the top 10 Jean Grey looks that still need to be adapted. Like that's like years ago, like a decade ago. I don't even think that would still be in existence, but I think it was right after I left Hachette and I was going into grad school and like I got paid like $2 for that. But I was like, I made money on my own
You made
without my
money off of
job.
Jean Grey.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Okay, so sort of piggybacking off of that, we did eventually, I mean, fairly early. I know you're not good with years, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you that it was 2007. We had
Hmm.
probably known each other virtually for like 2.5, 3 years at this point. Uh, this is specific. I don't just want the general, we met in New York City because that's where
Mm-hmm.
you lived at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Where specifically in New York City did
Mm-hmm.
we meet?
We met in Chelsea, right? At my favorite spot, which I'm totally forgetting the name of the bar. Is it? No,
No,
wait, I'm getting
no,
this confused.
this is not true. No,
Oh my God,
no.
I'm getting this
This is
confused
where
with
we,
the trip with Mackie. We met in Times Square. We met in Times Square.
nope,
No.
you're still wrong. Oh my
Why am I
God, I
wrong?
can't
I'm
believe you
not
don't
wrong.
remember.
Where did
I
we
cannot
meet?
believe you
Where
don't
did we meet?
remember.
Where did we meet?
We met in Victoria's Secret because
Oh, because Mary was buying a bra. Yes.
and I'm like, hey, can you meet me at the Victoria's Secret? And I'm sure you were like, what the fuck? Why is he at the Victoria's Secret? But then of course you got there, you met Mary, you understood that girl needed, she needed to be cozy on her New York trip. So yeah, no, it was definitely the Victoria. And it might have been, I think it was Times Square adjacent, but the first
Yeah.
time we laid eyes on each other IRL was definitely in like a mega Victoria's Secret store.
Yeah, and then we would go down to that bar in Chelsea that I love very much. And I'm forgetting the name because it's been gone for like 15 years. It's like the same people who own Art Bar. And then we have this photo of all three of us, me, you, and Mary, and me grabbing Mary like this.
You were just making sure that her new bra fit well, okay?
We were
Oh
how we
no.
were 24, 24, 22. No,
I was
22.
20 I was yeah, 22. I was 22, you would have
So
been
I was
23.
23. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
23. Oh my
babies.
God.
We're
We were
babies.
emos there. You had an express jacket, right? You
Hmm.
had
A
like
pea coat.
the pea coat. I remember because I loved that coat. And we were just, and that's when you were drinking. So you and I were just hot messes.
A hot mess. A total hot mess. There's a reason Flink don't drink no more. But
um, that
the only
was
thing I remember about that bar in Chelsea,
yeah.
aside from the photo of you and me and Mary, is the mac and cheese. That
Oh
mac and
yeah.
cheese
Oh.
was incredible.
They had such great mac and cheese. It was delicious. And that was the trip that we spoke about in our last episode where we were
Yeah,
hunting for the true exclusive Marvel Legends Black Queen, and you found
yeah.
her and you gave her to me. And the photo that I posted, um, Midtown Comics is in the background for
Hmm.
those who probably don't know. So that means the Victoria's Secret did have to be around. I don't remember where that Victoria's Secret was. Um,
It was a
but
huge Victoria's Secret. Like it was overwhelming. There was like a giant staircase in it, and because I
mhm.
remember that I like glided down the stairs to meet you at the door. It was a very like Cinderella
How would
moment
we have
there.
even communicated? Because I'm pretty sure I probably had a sidekick and you had,
Yeah, it
I
would have
don't know what
been
phone you had.
texting.
Yeah, I guess texting was a thing.
I
Okay.
mean, I was on my like T9, like because I didn't have a sidekick. So I'm like, and I didn't have an iPhone. That was actually my friend Graham, who I was staying with, had like the first iPhone ever, and I like blew my
I
mind.
forgot about Graham.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Graham's an OG. He's an OG. I've known Graham forever.
But that trip, I loved it so much because you, me, and Jeff, and Mary, of course, but that was the first time we were hunting for legends together with
Yeah.
each other. And also the first time me and Jeff ever hunted with someone else because we don't really hunt with other collectors. And it was just so much fun to go into that true in Times Square. And it was such a vibe. It's just like a long lost era.
I mean the Ferris wheel in the middle, it was a little over the top, but you
Did we
know.
ride that Ferris wheel?
No, we did not. We were too cool for that.
And the dinosaur there, like that. So the legends were here, and the dinosaur was here. But you would come in through the staircase here, and then you'd have to go around, and like that dinosaur, the Tyrannosaurus, would go "Rah!" when you were walking by it. So
Vibes, vibes, vibes. And then Jean was
vibe.
in the discount bin.
Fuck you. Yes, she was in the
She
discount bin. Good
was.
for you for checking. I did the logical thing. I went where the legends would be, but no, she was in the discount bins right by the register. You were
But not
absolutely right.
discounted.
Not discounted. You had to pay a whole 7.99 for her.
Jesus Christ, we had it so good we didn't even know.
Okay. Well, so that's how we met. And I want to dive in a little bit more deeper to you. And I, of course, do know the story, but for the family at home who probably don't know, how did you first come into comics? What's Flink's origin story with comic books in general?
Well, I mean, I think like most kids, in the mid to late 80s, the first comic book, or like most kids ever, the first comic book character I was aware of was Batman. But I don't recall owning any Batman comics. I mean, maybe there was one, but the first comic experience I have any real memory of is actually Dazzler.
Mm.
And that all happened at a neighborhood garage sale. It was like down the block from my childhood home, like four houses down. And I had to be like maybe four, five. It couldn't have been later than 1990 because I was already reading comics with the 1991 Jim Lee X-Men #1. Um, so yeah, I saw, of course, the cover to Dazzler #1, that beautiful painted cover where she's like, skating out
Mm.
towards the viewer. And
Iconic.
I mean, it's just this fabulous woman on roller skates. And I was like, what is this? And I think on our first episode, I think I said I got the entire series. I've sort of ruminated on that a little bit more. And I think it was only probably like 10 or 12, like maybe the first year. And they wanted like $1 for the group, which of course I paid probably with quarters. And I mean,
You
that
were
was it.
short. You only had 95 cents.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm sorry. Can I get some change? No. Dazzler was my first superhero comic. She was my first mutant. And my introduction to the X-Men was via Dazzler having a phone call with Storm, in that first issue. And like thinking about it now, it's like kind of crazy how like vast my initial exposure to the Marvel Universe was. Because if you think about it, in the first 10 issues of that series, she meets all of their headline, like in the first two issues, she meets all of the headlining heroes like the FF, Spidey, Hulk, the Avengers, the Enchantress, and then she goes on to fight Doctor Doom and Galactus, and it's crazy thinking about it how much of the Marvel universe I got like all at once. So, I mean, it wasn't just my first comic experience; it was like a crash course in the Marvel universe for Tiny Flinkman. I owe Dazzler a lot.
Do they still have garage sales?
I mean, around here they do. I mean, they don't have, garages in Hoboken, so you're not. But they do still around here. Not that I would go to any
we
in my
we
neighborhood. I don't need any rustic furniture.
we have street fairs, and also like in Soho, you can walk by and there are people selling comics on the side of the streets. It's particularly in Soho for whatever reason. In Miami, I haven't really seen a lot of people doing that, but I think there's something so magical to stumble upon these characters and getting that intrigue. And for folks at home who probably don't know, um, that first issue of Dazzler with the oil painting shipped like how many copies? 400,000 copies. It was an insane amount.
It was the first direct market comic Marvel ever published. So it
Yeah.
wasn't available on newsstands or at the 7-Eleven or whatever. It was only available at comic shops. So yeah, it was a big deal and got a huge marketing push.
So finding it at a garage sale as a little kid, it's like stumbling upon like this treasure and
Yeah.
and getting to know Allison and see the Marvel universe through her eyes. Did she set up that model? I'm trying to think. I'm trying to go through my catalog here. Did she set up the model of these solo series that they go around and they tour the various casts of the Marvel universe? Because that's a hallmark now. If you're going to do a solo
Yeah.
series, you want to see these characters tour the Marvel universe. And Dazzler, I don't want to say she was the first, but she was a pioneer for that model in her solo series. And I I just like I think a lot of folks probably don't know how groundbreaking that character was back in the
Yeah.
80s. And
Yeah,
especially everything
they
with the tie-ins happening with movie studios and
oh
music
God, that's a
labels.
whole that's a whole nother episode. We need to get some folks and do a dramatic reading of the Jim Shooter script of the Dazzler movie. That's absolutely batshit insane. I talk about it all the time. But yeah, I mean, she like, I also can't say that she was the first.
Yeah.
But she definitely was fully immersed in the Marvel universe from the beginning. There was no like, here's her origin story, here's her slowly, being introduced to things. No, she was thrust in it. She was in the thick of the Marvel universe, interacting with everybody right away. So I mean, it was a crash course. And looking back, I not only do I love Dazzler, but like how much of my overall comic fandom do I owe to this series that just like slapped me across the face with all of these like amazing superheroes and like Marvel Universe concepts. Like it was pretty incredible. I'm really happy to have had that experience.
Yes.
Similar sort of question to you. When was the very first time you became aware of the X-Men or like the Marvel universe?
Yeah, I think it's kind of weird. I want to say I was like kind of like born with that knowledge, just like how you're born with like knowing the Beatles and Spice Girls. Obviously, Spice Girls was way after I was born, but um my mom had always tried to get me to play with the original X-Men line, like the figures from Toy Biz, because they were so cheap. They were like 4.99.
Yeah,
And
4.99.
and I distinctly remember walking into KB Toys and they used to have like the figures just like on the side of an aisle and like Storm and Cyclops just hanging out there. But I really came to the X-Men, like my curiosity really was peaked when I was in fourth grade and we had the 1994 Fleer Ultra cards out there.
Hmm.
And I had arrived to school early. I was dropped off. Again, it was fortuitous. My dad had dropped me off earlier than normal. So there was only like two or three kids in the school at the time. And two of them were my friends, and their names were Victor Salcedo and Carlos Medina, and they were trading the Fleer Ultra cards, and they had an extra Rogue, and they're like, Popple, which is like my nickname, Popple, you can have it. And so like I'm holding it, and it's a Joe Phillips art where she's just like this, and she has a
Yeah,
boulder behind her. And you know, at the time, being in fourth grade, I'd never seen art like that. Like you were
yeah,
studying art, you had an art class, but it was like official art, like the Mona Lisa, stuff like that. So I had never really seen art like Joe Phillips art. and I'm just holding this tiny little piece of card in my hand, and I'm just so mesmerized by the art and its beauty. And then I flip it over, and I'm reading her bio, and her name is unrevealed, and I can't comprehend how someone doesn't know someone's name. You know
Yeah.
how no one knows this woman's name. Who is this woman? And that her powers were to siphon memories and powers from other people. It was so like not Superman. It was so not Batman.
Yeah.
It was just such a unique power set for me at the time, and I needed to know more. Like I couldn't sleep at like in fourth grade at home in my bunk beds, being like, who is this woman? It was so feverish, and so from there we had a comic book store called Line Drive Beeper and Comics, which was by the Florida Everglades, and it was a beeper store that also had a section of comic books. And I went there with my cousin, who coincidentally was also getting into X-Men, and we started buying up the Fleer Ultras. And so from there, it was kind of like a snowball effect. I started watching the series, I started collecting the comics, the action figures soon
Yeah.
followed suit.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean, I don't think people who came up on comics in like the 2000s or even the late 90s, or certainly not today, understands that, we didn't have Wikipedia, we didn't have uncannyxmen.net, we didn't have ways to discover these characters. So like a lot of the knowledge that we were all getting and our first introductions to these characters were through these trading cards. And I was involved a little bit earlier than you. I think my first trading cards were the 1992 series of X-Men
mm,
cards. And yeah, I mean, I became obsessed. I would get them at Toys R Us. I would get them, on a good day, if I'd been a good little boy, I would get an X-Men, a 4.99 X-Men figure and a dollar pack of X-Men trading cards, and I would just be the happiest kid in the world. But like that is how you learned about things like Excalibur and who the members were. And, it was my first exposure to Rachel Summers. And shout out to Rachel. And I just, they were such a hallmark of being, and because we couldn't, it was hard to go back and get back issues. It was hard to even know like what you were supposed to read. So like a lot, I think I didn't even know that there was an uncanny X-Men and an adjectiveless X-Men until way like way later in life. I just thought there was X-Men.
yeah.
So like they were definitely a gateway drug for a lot of 90s kids who are now big X-Men fans.
Well, and that's why there's so much love from us for Lenore Zand, because again, it's like this was in its infancy. You didn't understand these characters. And so when you have the animated series and you're hearing this voice, you're sort of piecing this character together in your head. And I spoke to Zeb Wells years ago, and he talked about why certain fans of a certain generation hold these characters so tightly, and it's because we had to be little archaeologists. We had to
Yeah.
go out there and we had to discover these characters, because I'll tell you this, I don't mind saying these things. I have holes in my X-Men knowledge, because for like 15 years, the only thing I knew about Magma was what I had on a little trading
Yeah.
card, or one issue of New Mutants that I had that she happened to be, in there or spotlit. You had to really go out and find these issues. You had to really get these cards and start piecing together in like the pre-internet days, and even post-internet with AOL and dial-up. The information was not as easily searchable as it is now.
Yeah.
Now you can just, I can't sleep, I'm going to go on Wikipedia, tell me everything I need to know about Magma. I remember in the early aughts staying home on a Friday night watching TGIF, Papa John's Pizza, and logging into uncannyxmen.net on my computer, where it wasn't up here, the monitor wasn't up, it was actually below the desk with the glass, and like hovering over. I know. You look at your
What?
I know, my desk, like the computer desk I had, you had the monitor mounted below the glass. I
Why
know.
that you're gonna turn
Listen,
into a
it was the early
hunchback?
aughts. It was
Sure,
post
sure.
Y2K. It was post
We weren't
Y2K. We
supposed
were
to be
on a
spending as
frenzy.
much
Yeah.
time on the computer as we
Yeah.
as we
But
all wound up.
hunched over reading all about these characters, like with my pizza, like, and filling in that knowledge, these holes. And so it's kind of, it's beautiful now that we have Marvel Unlimited and Wikipedia, but at the time it was such the discoverability, you felt like you were getting knowledge that was just not available to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the ease of access to the information now. It just blows my mind. Like you're right, we were like little archaeologists, like uncovering things as we could, and it was a lot of fun. Like I
We
kind
had
of
to go to
miss.
beeper store. I'm sorry to interrupting. We had to go to beeper stores just to get information on Rachel Summers and Madeline Pryor.
That is wild.
Beeper stores.
Beeper, and do I honestly, we need to do a poll question of people born after the year 2000. Do y'all even know what beepers are? Like, I don't know. I
I
don't know.
love.
Beeper and a landline.
I miss my beeper. So I had a cool beeper. I miss that beeper more than anything.
Oh, I had a translucent red. Like,
Oh my god! I always wanted the translucent pink one. It may be the same one. It was, but the ones I saw were pink and green and blue. I always wanted the translucent. I had the smaller ones with like a grip handle.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, of
Yeah,
course you'd want pink. Kimberly
yeah,
forever.
yeah. Oh god! Again, Kimberly Hart. It was such an era. That era of '90s. It was just there was so much love, and I don't want to I think our familia is more of an exception to the rule, but right now with so much conversation out there about X-Men and fandom, having an opinion or even asking a question can lead into a conversation you didn't really want to step in,
Yeah.
right? And back then, up until like, maybe the mid-aughts, you could just have conversations and go up to your comic book counter and ask like, I'm sorry, like I don't understand Madeline Pryor. Can you tell me about Madeline? Can you tell me what the Phoenix Force is? Can you tell me about Destiny and Mystique? You can have these conversations and it was just about the characters and having fun and discovering it. Whereas versus now, I think conversations lead to a lot more intense emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, when you have all of the information right there, anybody can become an expert or think they're an expert.
Everyone's an expert overnight. It's insane. Like everyone's an expert, and you're like, okay, But anyways,
Yeah.
we digress.
Yeah.
Episode for another day. Now I'm gonna be really salty. Let's get into this like saltiness of this interview. Favorite X-Men, and you can only choose one. Only one.
Oh my God. Okay. Okay. I mean, listen, so you would think, given the Dazzler story that I told, that I would pick her.
Mhm.
But the thing is, because I read her in her solo series, I
Mhm.
didn't associate her with the X-Men until quite a bit later. Like I didn't read the Outback era until the aughts. So like I didn't have strong associations with her with the X-Men.
Mhm.
God. So I mean, I hate to not give it to Dazzler, but like I think I have to give it to Emma Frost.
Mm.
Because I mean
Mm.
she like I can't, understate the importance of things like the Phalanx Covenant and Generation X. I mean, she joined the X-Men during like my formative comic book reading years and has been a mainstay ever since. So like I think that it has to be Emma. But if you were putting a gun to my head and you weren't giving me the space to provide context or a long-winded answer, I think it would of course be Dazzler. But like
I,
overall, if we're talking X-Men, like people who are only associated with the X-Men, it has to be Emma. It has to be.
n- Now,
Sorry,
which
sorry, Dazzler. I'm so sorry.
Okay, wait. Let's Hellfire era Emma, Generation X Emma, Astonishing Emma. Which era of Emma do you think the character is sort of epitomized? Have we not seen that era yet?
I I'm gonna give it to Morrison. I think new X-Men Emma is
Mm.
just flawless. I mean, it
Oh,
it didn't completely ignore, the stuff that had come before, but it evolved her into almost like a funnier character a little
oh.
bit. Like she just her witticism, like she
A witty
just
character, super witty and over
yeah.
the top and dramatic and fun. And I agree with you. I think Morrison
That's
Emma. I'm like Morrison. I wanted to say Morrison era Emma.
yeah, she's just incredible. Like it just Generation X, of course, brought her to the side of the Angels, but I think the Morrison era took her as being, as a hero, but still layered in some of the snark and a little bit of deviousness that the Hellfire era Emma had, and I think it's just the best possible version of the character. And you know, the John Cassidy Astonishing X-Men era also is, you know, carried that forward. The writer of that series carried those personality traits forward. So I don't think we wouldn't, I don't have to say think, we wouldn't have the Emma Frost we have now if it wasn't for Morrison, and I have to give them all the credit for that.
It's wild to me that we see such a backlash to new X-Men because I don't think a lot of folks understand the major impact Morrison had on the franchise. And of course, you can not like a story. Of course, you can not like character designs. But at the time, that was very much the gold standard of
Yeah.
storytelling in comics. And what they did with these characters gave rise to a lot of their modern interpretations where they're at today. Emma really became a leader following everything that happened in New X-Men.
Yeah.
Cyclops had a beginning, middle, and end arc that I would argue ended in IVX. Sort of, you can trace everything that happened with Cyclops from New X-Men to IVX. A
Yep.
lot of these stories were larger than life, and they were really well written. And Emma in particular, I mean, to pick up Planet X-Men issue or Planet X issue 5 and see Jean coming to rescue Beast and Emma, and Emma being like, "You never would have survived the crash had it not been for my quick thinking." And Beast like, "You're still with that, Emma?" And she's like, "Something's coming." And Beast is like, "Oh, is that a speck under your lens again?" And Emma's like, "I beg your pardon. It's emotional, all too familiar." And then Beast is like, "Well, what is it?" She goes, "What does it look like? It's bloody Jean showing off again." Perfect.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
And then in the same issue, her looking at Cyclops, being like, "So you finally decided to show your face." And then she goes, "They bloody shot," showing that vulnerability. In one issue, you got Emma being
Yeah.
funny and witty to being vulnerable. Perfect. I'm sorry, I'm ranting there because I love
No,
Morrison. I
no.
love the Morrison era. I think, again, you can dislike it, but the impact and the thought that went into this era was just amazing.
Well, and I think like this year, just in this in 20 the year of our Lord 2024, I think that the impact of the Morrison era is like undeniable. Undeniable. We have E is for Extinction, you know, being
Mhm.
adapted for X-Men 97. We have Cassandra Nova showing up in Deadpool and Wolverine. And like even the Jean stands, if y'all want to be mad that Morrison killed Jean, they also established the White Hot Room, which of course is a key component of the mutants, you know, the fall of Krakoa and like what is going on with like the modern storytelling surrounding Jean and the mutants. So like you might, yeah, hate on the black leather if you want. If you don't love, you know, squinty eye characters from Frank Quietly, that's totally fine. You're wrong. But whatever, that's your cross to bear. But you at this point, you cannot deny, nobody can deny the impact that New X-Men has had on the overall franchise. Like I will not accept it.
Quietly, as the series was being published, a lot of people did criticize Quietly's characters, how they look. But one thing you that was very much noted was how kinetic he drew the characters. And I'm thinking of All Star Superman when he had Lucy Lane, I believe it was Lucy Lane um that was in this one panel with Jimmy Olsen. But Lucy is like sitting on his apartment floor like this, and like her arm is back, and it was just so real
Yeah.
and just you know. The Quietly art, just you have to not just focus in on the aesthetic, you have to focus in on how Quietly was telling the story, and it was just so beautiful. Again, I think that Morrison Quietly era is great. As you know, I kind of go against the grain with fellow Gene stands in that I don't think Jean is just dead at the end of
Right.
Morrison's run. She is in the White Hot Room, and Jean is where I want her to be, God Queen in the White Hot Room, amputating timelines and acknowledged that Scott was becoming more human, finally coming into his emotions. She was becoming a god, and that he needed someone like Emma, who on the surface can be bitchy, but actually is a very deeply feeling person with a big heart who cares about her students. And they were the perfect people to come together and continue the X-Men legacy at the time. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Wait,
No,
you know,
we could go
we
off about
got. I'm
Morrison
sorry.
all day, all day. So moving on. On a similar note,
Mhm.
I don't need to ask you your favorite character. I
Mm-mm,
don't think I even need
mm-mm,
to ask you your second favorite character.
mm-mm,
I
mm-mm,
believe both of them have the last name of Gray.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
That's fair.
I'm gonna ask, who is your third favorite X-Men character?
God damn it, man. Like, okay, we talked about this when we were covering the Krakoan era on Generations of X, which is like, it depends on your day and your mood, right?
Okay, well, right now,
Yeah, I can say Doug Ramsey, I can say Onslaught, I can say Fabian Cortez, but I think historically, if I had to pick a third that would be a consistent character I love, I'm gonna say Emma. Emma. And
I'll take it.
yeah,
I'll
no,
take that.
for no other reason than we just discussed here. I think Lobdell did a great job with Generation. I was going to say Generations of X. God damn it. Generation X. I think he did such a great job, kind of like bringing her into, the X-Men fold. And then Morrison, they picked up the ball. And then during the Astonishing era, she really became realized. And I think, again, just to reiterate what we just talked about, Emma deeply cares. And I think she's a character that gets dismissed as being the babe
Yeah.
or the bitch. And I think the key to writing a really good Emma is that she has heart. She's tough. She's morally gray. She's witty. She will make jokes in very serious situations because that is her coping
Yep.
mechanism. Like we saw after they rescued her after the Genosian genocide, she's here like, well, bring her back to life, you imbeciles. You know what I mean? Because that's how Emma processes the world. I think she's such a dynamic character with so many layers. And I think there's sometimes that you can tell when a writer is just writing the girlfriend, the bitch, or you can see when you have someone like Hickman, for example, that writes a character that's really fully understanding Emma. And I think
Yeah.
Morrison, I think Scott Lobdell, I think they really had a good grasp on Emma. So for all those reasons that we've discussed and these right now, Emma is a solid third. But yeah, I wish we hadn't just done the Emma rant because I was ready to sound off on Emma, but I I think consistently Emma always comes in third for me. Always.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Emma was like a big reason we, bonded at the time because that was again right after Morrison. Astonishing X-Men was kicking off. We got two beautiful, Marvel Select Emma Frost figures. And that was Emma's moment, and she is a reason I think that you and I got as close as we did at the time. We were definitely bonding over Emma.
It's always so odd to me when I speak with fellow Gene Stans. And listen, I speak Gene Stan language. I can get really neurotic in my own Gene thoughts. But
No.
when people kind of dismiss like you can't like Emma and like Gene as well, and it just for me there was never a competition with these characters over Cyclops. You know what I mean? Like I think what we had were two powerhouses whose personalities clashed, and they have a lot of baggage that started with Emma being put into a coma by Phoenix, and then Emma having body switched her and Jean in the early 90s, and then everything that happened with Cyclops. I mean, these characters have so much history together. They're two powerhouses who, of course, their personalities are going to clash,
Yeah.
but you can like both characters just like you can like a cheeseburger and a pizza. Very
Yeah.
different reasons why you love, but I always know I can't have a rational conversation when someone's like, well, I hate Emma because of everything she did with Jean. And I'm like, I also like, I think Morrison did a great job in showing the very gray area of that psychic affair and also toying with the ethics of it. They never physically touched. Nothing happened in Hong Kong. Cyclops was like, I was right. I'm not right. He was here like, I am serious about the celibacy, but It's Jean or nothing.
Yeah.
And they had a psychic affair, but it was nothing else. And I think the moral, ethical, questions that this brings up is really appetizing for a reader. So I don't know. I think it's too easy to dismiss because she had an affair with Cyclops. There was so much at play in these stories.
Yeah. I
Sorry.
think it's a little reductive
No.
to boil, Emma Frost down to, and Jean both to their
Yeah.
relationship with Cyclops. So
Yeah, it's
like
horrible.
why define these two incredibly different female characters by their relationship to a man? Like, no, I won't have it.
Although I do like that the love because it's typically the two male characters fighting over the female character.
Yeah,
I love two female characters fighting over the male. I love that flipping again, but
fair.
that is a superficial read on it. It's
Yeah,
just that is but one example of the layers that Morrison did with Emma, with Jean, and so forth. So again, I think Emma just has so much layers and storytelling that's just appeals to me as a reader. That's it.
yeah. Gay boys love Emma Frost. Film at 11.
All right. Least favorite X-Men. Least favorite X-Men. Who's your least favorite X-Men?
This is actually kind of a hard question because I've become so like diplomatic about the X-Men in recent years.
Mm,
I can
mm,
find like
mm.
positive about just about anyone, but I think if you put a gun to my head, it would still, we've covered this extensively in the past, it would still probably be Beast. I
Same,
mean,
same.
he's just been written as such a prick over the last decade and a half. I do enjoy him as an Avenger, and they've literally just brought back that version of the character. So maybe he's gonna have a redemption arc, or maybe I won't like the comic, like I don't yet. So we'll see. But I will say if we're talking like who do I hate as a member of the X-Men? I really have to say that I hate Quentin Quire in a super suit acting as a hero. I'm a purist. I only accept him as the anarchist Morrison intended him to be. I don't like
Hmm.
him in a super suit out there fighting to save the world or even to save the mutant cause because like that's to me not who the character is, and it didn't feel because I really didn't like Krakoa in X-Force and I really didn't like Wolverine in the X-Men, so that it just to me it doesn't feel like a natural progression for that character. So Beast overall, but if we're talking specifically functioning as a member of the X-Men, I really don't like superhero Quentin Quire.
Yeah, for me, there's this weird disconnect with Quentin Quire from Phoenix Endsong to Wolverine and the X-Men. I mean,
Yes.
something got lost in the editorial shuffle because he was an anarchist. He was a Phoenix host. He did elevate to a higher state of being, and then all of a sudden he's in this jar in Beast's lab during Phoenix Endsong, and then
Yeah.
obviously he comes back. Um, it's something just kind of got lost there for me, and I've never really, he's in Jed McKay's X-Men right now, and I don't know, he just comes across so, you know, not should not be part of a team. I like him again
No.
as an anarchist. He is, Magneto is right. He originated that right at Xavier's. That's where I kind of love seeing the character. I don't like the Cuckoos dating him. I
No.
don't like it. The entire point was that the Cuckoos were very turned off by him because he was a creepy guy who was like kind of
Yes.
stalking them and obsessed with them. And they were just like you. I mean, we saw it in Phoenix Endsong when Sophie came back, and Sophie was like, "Ew," and then she would rather be a corpse and dead
Yeah.
than have to be Quentin Quire's girlfriend. I mean, it's just I don't know. So I agree with you. Beast. I'll tell you, my hatred for Beast is well known. Um, a lot of people, I think, larger non diehard X-Men comic book readers don't really get it because they think of Beast hanging upside down, trying to cure the legacy virus, George Buza voice. Like, come on, like who doesn't love that version of Beast? But it very much is a comics Beast. And
Yeah.
it started at the end of AVX when Cyclops was like in prison after the Phoenix Force. And listen, Cyclops's actions during AVX, we can examine it We
Yeah,
can
yeah,
say they were
solving
wrong.
world hunger and ending wars. What a terrible thing he did.
But he was also trying to restore the mutants. No one was fixing this problem. Beast wasn't fixing this problem. We saw an
Right.
endangered species. Beast had reached a point where he's here like, I don't know what's going to happen to the mutants. I can't solve Wanda's curse.
And
Cyclops tried.
by the way, Beast was collaborating with supervillains and endangered species. So he
Yes.
has no fucking moral high ground when it comes to taking questionable actions to save the mutant species. He's just pissed that Cyclops actually fucking did it.
And he literally at the end of AVX in that uncanny issue, he looks at Cyclops. You see, you're like, everything you've done, you've made it so hard for all these emerging mutants. And Cyclops is like, wait, what do you mean emerging mutants? Hank, are there more mutants? And Hank's like, oh, yes, I guess the way you did it was right. The mutants are being repopulated because, the Phoenix dispersed around the globe. And that last shot of Cyclops going like that and Beast just being a prick in the background, I was like, you are an awful, despicable person.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also the sins against our God Queen, in which he traveled back in time to bring the original five X-Men to the present and basically told a teenage girl that she was destined to die. I mean, he didn't say it, but she got it, when she
Yeah.
got there. Like, you took a child and traumatized her to let her know one day she was going to die. Fuck you, Hank McCoy.
Yeah. He gets no moral high ground. Sorry. Sorry, Hank.
Sorry,
Okay.
Hank.
So I'm curious, we've discussed the Phoenix quite a bit, and of
Mhm.
course, it is a character very strongly associated with the Grey Summers family. But I'm
Mhm.
curious, and Emma Frost can't be the answer to this either, okay?
Mm,
Because we have already
mm.
gone into
Well,
great detail about loving Emma Frost. Who is your favorite non-Grey Summers Frost Phoenix Force host?
you're such an asshole for asking this question because
Sorry.
there's only one right response.
And
Amber Hunt. Amber Hunt from Malibu Comics.
oh my God, what are you talking? I'm afraid you're gonna have to explain that to the masses because not, I know what you're talking about, but come on.
There's this other universe called the Ultra Universe, and it was a subsidiary of Marvel Comics. And the Phoenix Force traveled to this other world and inhabited the body of this. What was she? She was like a teenage valley
Yeah,
girl and
yeah.
possessed her. And I wish these comics were available digitally or
Oh, same,
anywhere so
same.
I could reread them instead of these Wikipedia pages because I love these comics. I read, I probably still have them at my parents' house. I should actually try to fish them out. But it was such a vibe. And
Oh yeah,
the Phoenix eventually leaves her and goes to, what was his name? Maxis? The
something
dude,
like that.
the dude with the cape and the big chest, he will
Yeah,
eventually get the Phoenix for. And that's actually how I discovered Amber Hunt because I traced it from Maxis or whatever his name is to Amber Hunt. And listen, Valley Girl, teenager in high school, I'm going to be all over that. I did sometimes get her confused with what was the character's name? Foxfire? Anyways, this was a different universe. This is where the idea of the exiles first originated.
yep,
It
yep.
was it was such a wonderful vibe. The artist was Paul Pelletier, if I remember
Who
correctly.
who went on to go do Marvel's Exiles.
Yep, yep. And well, actually, I didn't know that. Thank you for bridging that. And then the art was just so beautiful, and the coloring. Again, like I had to let me look up the colorist because I want to give the colorist the proper dues there because it was
Well,
the colors that really made it for me.
and the thing is, do you know that the entire reason that Marvel bought Malibu was for their modern coloring techniques?
Paul Mounts was the colorist for this. I didn't know that. I did
Yeah.
not know that.
Basically, Marvel bought Malibu because they wanted their more modern coloring, printing techniques. And as with series like the ones that we're talking about, they attempted to make the Malibu Ultraverse work. And then as soon as it didn't work, they were like, beep, cut that off, and we haven't seen them since, except for Topaz and Thor Ragnarok. We got
Mm.
Topaz and Thor Ragnarok. She didn't have the blue skin, but she had the staff. She had the little headpiece. Like it was definitely the Ultraverse Topaz, and I think Taika Waititi just didn't know what he was he was dipping into. But
Um, Memory Unlock. By the way, Topaz, the action figure, was
oh
substitute Mystique before we had Mystique in
yeah,
the Toy
yep.
Biz line.
I still have
Wow.
Topaz, hard case, and Prime somewhere in the vast bowels of my nerd room remodel here, which is why if you're watching on YouTube, I have an empty glass case and empty shelves behind me because I'm still we're working it out. It's gonna happen soon.
I'm looking at these figures right now and I want them all. Fuck. Okay. Yeah, but Amber Hunt, I think, was just really fun. When the Phoenix, I like what Louise Simonson has posed recently, and I don't need to repeat this because I ran about it all the time, where there are two interpretations you can have of the Phoenix. One, the Phoenix is this cosmic entity that bonded with Jean, or the second interpretation is that Jean created the Phoenix, and any manifestation of the Phoenix throughout the Marvel universe, throughout time and space, is actually a manifestation of Jean's will, and she's that powerful. I
Mm-mm.
I prefer the
Mm-mm.
latter. I prefer that. I love the idea of the Phoenix being a creation of Jean. So I have eased. I am happier to see the Phoenix possess other people, knowing it's actually God. Look at your face. Look at your
Sour
face.
grapes. I'm sour.
Your face right now. So I'm happy with anyone having the Phoenix Force. But if I had to pick something that I really like, could say that I purely loved, not contentious for me at all. It would be Amber Hunt. It was the discoverability, everything we talked about, picking up these issues, not understanding it, and piecing everything together, and trying to understand what the Ultra universe was, and how the Phoenix could be in one issue of X-Men, and then seemingly this other world, this other dimension that did not seem associated with Marvel in any way.
Fair, fair. That is a very surprising answer to me. I love that. I love that we just got to go off on the Ultraverse, which I adore. I'm a child of the 90s. How can
I
I not love
know.
Malibu Comics?
I thought you would know that. I thought you would be expecting that answer. I thought you
No,
would. Who did
we've
you think I was going to
never.
say? Who
We
was
have
I going to
never.
say? You
I don't
eliminated
know.
the Grays. You eliminated the Grays. So like, who else? Or Gray
Echo?
Summers. I never really read everything that happened with Echo. I will say that I feel the way the Phoenix left her was kind of lame. I did read that issue
Well,
very
yes.
briefly, and I will say also I did not like how they handled Jean talking to Echo. I think there should have been more of a fleshed out scene there. But um, Storm in the What If, Spider-Man, Wolverine. I mean, they were just kind of all throwaways. I do. You know what I have liked in retrospection? It's taken me years to get here. I do like the Phoenix Five. So eliminate Scott and Emma, um, Magic, Colossus, and Namor. But again,
I
these are
was
these are more
Those are who I was
gimmicky.
expecting. Those were who I was expecting. Not Amber Hunt. I'll take it, but I was expecting Ileana, to be perfectly honest with
Oh,
you.
that costume is amazing.
Oh, all of those designs were incredible. And I picture, the destruction of Wakanda, and we got this beautiful like booty shot with butt cleavage of Namor as he's like wreaking havoc on Wakanda. I That image is seared into my brain. I'm pretty sure if you go back in my Instagram, it's like one of my first posts is like a butt shot of Namor in his Phoenix 5 costume.
There is
Oh God.
there is this variant cover of Namor that came out in recent years of him with the Phoenix in space with sharks next to him. And listen, a hunky daddy king with the Phoenix Force and sharks that I identify a lot with sharks. That is my one of my favorite images out there. But no, I think those. I mean, I'm trying to think of substance over gimmick. How about
Yeah.
that? And I think Amber Hunt. There's a story there. It's interesting.
Yeah.
There's lore. So why don't we talk about Marvel Legends and why do you love Marvel Legends so much?
Oh man. Okay. So like by the time it launched in 2002, we had been without a comic-based Marvel action figure line for a couple of years. There may have been some like comic shop exclusive Toy Biz stuff, but I wasn't buying that at the time. Or I really wasn't I wasn't going to the comic shop as much at that point, like in high school. So I was still, in middle and high school going to Toys R Us fairly often, probably more for Spice Girls dolls than action figures at that point. So when Marvel Legends showed up, I was just like I had been hungry for Marvel action figures, and I was just like so happy to be able to scratch that action figure itch again, like even though there weren't any X-Men for a few waves, but also that's kind of what kept me going, is waiting for the X-Men, getting more involved in the line. And I think the reason that I love it so much now, more than I ever, did in the Toy Biz era. Sorry to Jesse Falcon and co. But it's definitely Hasbro's willingness to give us characters, 20 years ago, we never thought we would get. We've got three different Dazzlers, and we have Emma and her bustier and panties. We definitely never thought we were going to get that. But Madeline Pryor, Boom Boom, Megan, Binary, like they have just gone so far into the Marvel universe and given us so much goodness that I have no choice but to stan Marvel Legends and what Hasbro has done with the line. So it's one of the longest running uninterrupted action figure lines of all time at this point. It has to be. It has to be. I can't think of anything else. So it's just so iconic and has just it's been such a huge part of my life, like more than half of my life now. So I could go on. I love Legends.
Yeah, Toy Galaxy gave an interview with the New York Post talking about how modern action figure collecting is basically adults and not kids.
My
And
nephews don't care.
yeah, my nieces, my godson, my nephew, they don't care. In fact, actually, I just saw my nephew last week, and I brought him a Sentinel, and my cousin looks at me and he's here like, "Oh, that's his first action figure," and I'm like, "What? Oh my God!" Like they're not collecting
How
action figures.
old?
He's 3.
Oh, okay, well,
Well, maybe, but I don't know. I had like a He-Man, like I had a or She-Ra. But
fair.
let me
I
not
mean, yeah,
lie.
so did
I'm not
I.
gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I had a She-Ra, but I also had He-Man, and I had Catwoman, and I had a Batman figure. So we had, action figures. But how about this? When we're in the action figure aisle, they're not kids there. They're
No.
grown-up adults, and there there are kids growing up now who are not hunting Warbird at Target. We would have been hunting that She-Force figure of Warbird. I mean, we had to write those checks, cut out the clipping from Toy Fair, and mail that and get it in. I don't think kids are doing that, sadly.
No, definitely not. They definitely are not. And
But
yeah, like I tried with my nephews. I bought them action figures for the first, after they turned 3, probably. I at least waited until the age on the box was appropriate.
yeah,
And I tried to get them into things like Marvel and Power Rangers and things that I loved that they made like kid-friendly toys for. It's a little weird. The one I think it was from like a book that I bought, my older nephew Liam. He did get into one Marvel character a little bit, and it's so random.
who
He
was it? Who was it? Who was
loved
it?
Abomination.
Oh my, well, okay, I can get it. It's a big monster.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
yeah.
I
And
understand.
I gave him I got the Raft box Marvel Legends box set that had like the Hasbro updated Abomination. So I gave him my old Toy Biz Bring on the Bad Guys Abomination probably when he was like, I don't know,
I
7,
forgot about
6,
that box
7.
set until now. Oh
Oh
my
yeah.
God.
I bet he still has that action figure somewhere, even if now at 14 years old, he's too cool for it. But kids, they're not into toys like
I,
like we were. But they
I
have screens.
Yeah,
So
they love iPad. Like I tried to indoctrinate my nieces. I took them to see the Marvels a couple years ago
good.
when we had the Netflix Shira. I got them the Shira swords and stuff like that with Sailor Moon as well. I've talked about Jean Grey to them. They're just not into it. They prefer whatever is here. They want to know the new Snapchat filter. It's
Oh,
so weird. Like my nieces are
no.
obsessed with Snapchat filters. But I tried, man. I took them to see the Marvels, and they're like, "Okay, well, now we're gonna see the Taylor Swift, movie." And I was just like, "Oh my God, it's just not there. There's no spark or curiosity." Um, but yeah, I think maybe I have hopes for my nephew. I think he really took to the Sentinel, and I just got a photo of him this morning holding the Sentinel I gave him last week. So,
Nice.
so there we
I
go.
mean, they
Although,
might have staged it. Who knows? Just to
uh,
make you feel good. They
although
do.
my
Parents will do that.
my sister-in-law, well, my cousin's wife, she looked at me when I gave him the figure, and she's like, "Oh, is that Magneto?"
I could see how someone might think that. Maybe.
I was like, "Girl,
Girl, let's
girl."
tune in to Power of X-Men, and I will you'll learn all about it.
Okay, wait. Let me ask a follow-up question to this about
Not
Legends.
allowed.
Okay, your beautiful house, which I love, is on fire. I'm sorry, it's on fire, and you can only grab one Marvel Legends. Your newly constructed geek room is falling apart. Everything is going up in smoke, but you
Oh
have
no.
time. You have time. Kenny is outside. The entire pack is safe, but you have some minutes to grab one Marvel Legends figure. And let's assume they're all out. You were doing an inventory, so all of your
Yeah,
legends are out. You
yeah.
can only grab one. Which one do you grab?
I would save the Hellfire box set, Emma.
I
No
knew you would
shade to
say
my
that.
girl.
I knew you would say that. I don't know
Yeah, I
why
mean,
I knew you would
listen.
say that.
No shade to my girl Dazzler, but none of her three figures are exactly hard to find where I would be paying insane eBay prices for Hellfire Emma. So for now, the answer is Hellfire Emma.
Okay, that's fair. That is a great figure, and I'm sure she's so much on the secondary market.
I'm sure
Um,
she's crazy.
I remember your story of ordering that box set because we were in lockdown and you had ordered two and you were worried that one of them was gonna get canceled.
Yeah, because it was a limit of one, and I was greedy, and I was like, "Oh, it's letting me add two. I'm gonna do this." And then I was like, "Oh my God, they're gonna cancel." Like people on the Fwoosh, I think, were like really like their pants were on fire about orders being canceled if you ordered more than one. So I called like Hasbro's customer service and was on hold for like they have probably one person working in that call center, and I was on hold for 90 minutes waiting to talk to them to make sure my order wasn't going to be canceled. And thank God it wasn't. And that just reminds me, I do have a second Hellfire box set still in the box somewhere. So maybe I don't have another answer for you off the top of my head, but knowing that I have a second Emma, somewhere not in the house, probably out in my barn, um, or storage unit, maybe I would select somebody else. But off the top of my head, my first instinct is I gotta save Bustier and Panty Emma that we never thought we were gonna get.
I love that you called the Hasbro customer service line. I don't think I've called a service line since the Toy Biz days with that 1-800 number where you could call and like leave your action figure like want list,
Yep,
right? They had
which
like a
I
little
did.
like option number 3 or 4, something like that. And yeah, I have never called, but I remember you during lockdown like
Oh
having
yeah.
that significant freak out. And I was like, bitch is gonna be fine. And knowing us at the time, you were like, you're and I'm like, you're
Cancel.
you're like, it's gonna
Lord.
get canceled. I'm like, don't worry about it. You'll be fine
And I should have just listened to you on that one thing only.
on that one thing only. But I think we had to also sign up for like Pulse memberships because it
Yeah.
wouldn't be available until March. So
We were worried that it was I don't think you had to, but I think it was like a obviously the Pulse Premium members they get the early access by an hour, and
Mhm.
like the Hellfire Club has been so wanted by so many people for so long. I think we were all under the impression that if you didn't sign up for that, you weren't going to get one. And fair enough, that is kind of what happened. It proved so popular that they did. Yeah, I think they had to go back and do a second run that didn't ship. They had whatever for Comic-Con, available on hand at that point, and then the demand was so overwhelming that yeah, there was like a back order until March, and I wasn't going to wait that long to get my boo Emma and Celine.
I mean,
Okay,
listen, Celine, very important.
yeah, true. So still on the subject of Marvel Legends and Toy Biz, specifically, is there like pre pre Toy Biz Marvel Legends, is there a Toy Biz era Marvel figure from the 90s who still needs a Marvel Legends update that you want?
Wait, what do you mean by update? Like,
Like there hasn't okay, so like somebody like Slayback who
okay,
got an
okay,
action figure in the
oh,
90s but
okay.
hasn't gotten a Marvel Legends update.
Let me ask this question to you. Who do you think I'm gonna pick? I know the
I know
answer.
you're gonna Adam X the Extreme.
No! Yes, oh, listen, my heart will always like flutter for Adam X. You're not wrong. I don't want to, but like, I am sensible. I do have a priority list, and it's
Okay.
gonna be Ninja Force Deathbird.
Oh, well, yes, yes. Okay, I'm with you. I'm with you. 100% we can agree on that answer. I was so certain that you were going to pick Adam X, like so certain. And I'm glad that we can, agree on the figure rather than have to fight about it because I don't need Adam
I
X.
I want Adam X. All right, I need. Okay, fine. I need Adam X. Um, but I just I think in the list of priority, we need Deathbird. Deathbird is very essential to the collection. We're getting that era of where she was a little bit more
Yeah.
prominent in the Jim Lee books. So give us Deathbird. I want her. I want her with chrome parts. We've discussed this. We don't need to get into it. Blah blah blah. Um,
Yes.
but I think Deathbird. How about you? Is it Slayback?
Yeah, totally, totally. I honestly,
Is it Rachel? Oh no, wait. Rachel didn't
no,
have a
no,
figure,
no,
did she?
no, she didn't. She didn't. Off the top of my head, Penance? Probably
Fair.
Penance, maybe Marrow. I don't know
Marrow
why
was also on my list too. Well, because that's such a great Marrow. The Gene Nation Marrow was such a
with her
great figure.
creepy ass smile and the
And and
removable
and the
bones.
scaling, like
Yeah,
I have the figure somewhere here, but like the scales on her skin. Oh, it was so well done. Well
it was so
done.
well done. I don't know why, but my mind went immediately to like the Generation X waves. I
I
give us all the Generation X.
I couldn't sleep the other night and I started reading the first few issues of Generation X. What a vibe. I have Generation X on my mind. I have it on my
Always.
mind.
It's never far from my mind. Thanks, Scott Lobdell.
All right. Well, one of the things that I love so much about you is that you've taken your passion for comics and you've made it into a career. And you work at Heritage now. And I'm curious, one, why don't you explain to the family at home kind of like the scope of what you do, but also like how has that migration been for you mentally going from being a fan to being an industry professional and getting to see all these cool things at Heritage and talking with creators. Um, let the familia know.
Yeah, I mean, so essentially, Heritage is a leading auction house for comics, comic art, memorabilia, one of a kind, really cool things.
Mhm.
And I'm a cataloger for Heritage, so our consignment directors, they bring in this really amazing stuff, and then it gets passed off to me and my team to, write up descriptions for the website and the catalogs and I get to like have hands on some amazing stuff and it's obviously a dream job. Like I get to see one of a kind art pages from the biggest names in comic. Like we have several Jim Lee X-Men pages in our September auction. And I got to just pour over these pages and gush about them and why they're special, what characters are on them and why all this crazy information. I get to hold things like a 9.6 graded copy of Fantastic Four #1. I get to wear like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine claws, or in that case, at least try to, because apparently
Mhm.
he has very dainty hands, and my my man hands would not fit all the way in. But I digress. I digress. I
I
don't
mean,
want to
he's
get
very
all.
beautiful. I mean, the
He's a
boy from
beautiful
Oz
man.
is very beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So like of course it's work, but we have comic and comic art auctions 4 nights every single week of the year. Plus we have monthly specialty auctions and signature auctions, several times a year that we have like the really big stuff in. So I'm super busy all the time, but it's like a good kind of busy, like
Yeah.
how could I'm tired at the end of the day, but how could I ever complain when I get to see the things that I get to see? And everyone told me that I was gonna eventually become desensitized. But I've been there 2 years now, and that hasn't
Has it
happened.
been two
It was
years?
2 years last week.
Oh my God. I remember when you applied.
Yeah, it's crazy. And
Wow.
I actually applied for a comic book grader position.
I remember.
And I did not, I have no comic book grading experience. I don't know who I thought I was. I did not do well. I have since been trained. I can now grade comic books. I'm not grading my own comic books because I'm keeping them forever and ever. But yeah, I how it's like affected my fandom, I feel like it's honestly made me more of a comic book fan and not necessarily more of an X-Men fan because I'm not sure that's even possible, but I feel so much more enlightened about the broader world of comics, and I've just become a fan of so many more things. Like I'm obsessed with like pre-code horror comics from the 40s. I'm obsessed with collecting, single issues of comic books into bound volumes. And yeah, I have a lot more respect and appreciation for like the intricacies of comic books, comic book production, and a lot more respect for like comic books as a form of art rather than just a form of entertainment. It's really blown up, my broadened my horizons on just the comic book industry and world, at large. And I'm very fortunate to work in this position. I love it so much.
Praise White Phoenix. I love hearing that. Insulting that you haven't hired me as your auctioneer.
Listen, come on, come on. It's actually interesting. I think I don't quote me necessarily on this, but I don't know that we have just dedicated auctioneers. Most of the people I know that actually do our live auctions, which only happens for signature sales a few times a year. Most of them are like robo auctions online, but they're actual like employees. They're my coworkers in the
I
comic
love that.
department that just got certified in the state of Texas to be auctioneers, and we host auctioneer training on site at Heritage for employees. And
Have you taken that? Have you taken
I
that?
have not. I've
I've
thought
always
about
said
it.
this. I've always thought you would be a great auctioneer.
Well, I think eventually it's going to happen eventually. I'm interested in doing it. I just I don't have the time. I don't have the time to devote because it's during the workday, and I'm just like I said, it's no
You are
exaggeration.
very good at your job. And one of the things that I'm sorry to interrupt you. One of the
No,
things
you're
that I
fine.
loved was that early on, I was reading a lot of the stuff, like when you would put out your catalog and I would read your descriptions. My God, you can tell a fan, someone who is passionate about this. I mean, you're very talented in what you do. You're very talented as a writer and a mastery of the English language, but the actual substance, you can tell this is some written by someone who cares. And for folks who don't know, auctioneers, they inherit the descriptions. So an auctioneer who may not be familiar, I know that's not the case with Heritage because it's a lot of the employees, but like I will get a description of something I don't know about, and if it's a weak description, I have to either do my own research or it comes across as weak when you're trying to sell it. So
Yeah.
what you do is exceptional, and you're really good at it.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Look at me giving you my painkillers are kind of kicking in right now, so I'm giving you
You have oral surgery more often.
like,
No,
like yeah, you're really good at your job.
I mean, I don't want to in any way like toot my own horn here, but like it would be surprising if I wasn't a little bit because I have had writing training.
Yeah.
I have loved comic books my entire life. I would be doing myself and my company a disservice if I wasn't putting my all, applying all of my skills and putting all of my passion into these descriptions. And I mean, this catalog that we have that's at the printer right now for our September auction, is my best work yet because again, we have a lot of Jim Lee stuff. We have a lot of beautiful Jack Kirby stuff. Like I got to write up, it's a page from Journey into Mystery. It's a Thor page, but it's Magneto's first appearance outside of the X-Men title. So it's a Jack Kirby.
Oh,
He's a Magneto and he's like escaping in like a mini submarine and he's like, curse the god of thunder. I'll have my day or some just nonsense. And like, how can I not want to put my all into describing something that is just a piece of history, but also beautiful and corny at the same time? Like, I mean, those Silver Age Marvel comics, let's be real, there's a level of corniness to them, but I love that, you know? So I have to put my all into it. There's really no other way for me. And of course, I also do, you know, some videos for the Heritage Comics Instagram account. That's not something anybody asked me to do. That was just me. Like we have all of this amazing X. It started with just X-Men, but of course, I now do so much more. It's you know, it started with me just like, you know, Power of X-Men has a huge X-Men audience. We have all of this incredible X-Men stuff. I just want to show it off. And I'm, you know, I'm grateful that people seem to be responding to it and they keep asking me back to do more. So, you know, I'm here to do whatever Heritage wants me to do at this point. I am pretty much willing to do. Yeah, it's a dream. I truly am so fortunate to be able to do this.
are you a big diva on set when you have to record the Instagram reels? You're like, another take, another take.
No, I
Yeah.
would say all of them. I think I'm going to say have been one take.
I,
They have
I,
been one take. I've
it
maybe
comes across, you come across so natural on them, and I love it. I love that it gets to be put out there and gets shared with the familia. I think you you can just tell there's so much love and knowledge when you're doing those videos.
yeah. I mean, I thank you again. I love being. It's just going from I'm not gonna name where I used to work. You know, I have obviously respect for my past, but going from a job that was completely against my interests into something that I'm doing now that is couldn't appeal to my interests more. It's kind of like I don't think I would ever actually want to write X-Men comics because I would be so anxious and paranoid about doing them justice. So like this is the next best thing. I get to write about them instead.
Yeah.
It's just it couldn't appeal to my interests more.
It's so funny that you said that because I've always felt that way as well. I would never want to write the actual X-Men books, but doing the podcasts or working at Wizard, I like reporting on, I like writing about, but I would not want to write the
Yeah.
X-Men. You know what I mean? Like it's just, and especially in today's landscape, I do not envy any new X-Men writers out
Oh
there.
my God, no.
But it's very tough. In fairness, and we have been critical here at Power of X-Men, but in fairness, it's tough on these writers. Everyone has an opinion on these characters. So, but I'm with you. I like writing about. I think that is a key distinction, writing about and celebrating these characters and what in the canon we do have. I think that is always so glorious in taking fandom to, your own personal fandom to a new level.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I appreciate the opportunities that I have. So, I mean, now that I have gushed about my job a little bit,
Mm.
we can, get back to the to more specific comic book
Well, it's a
stuff.
good job to be gushing about.
Yes, it's true. It's true. I let's but for the sake of the familia, let's dive back into a
Mm,
little bit
mm,
of shade.
mm, 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 mm,
Let's go,
mm,
we've done too much gushing, so
mm.
let's go get it a little spicy. I would like you
Okay.
to list 3 ways in which Madeline Pryor is superior to Jean Grey.
um, how the clone is superior to the original.
Yeah.
No,
Mhm.
obviously, I think what's so lovely about Madeline is her story and that she is more than just a clone. And I think I've said this story before. I don't know if we've talked about it personally. When I was in fifth grade, I had to read this short story in my textbook about these clones that were being harvested for organs or something like that for the originals.
Lord.
I know that this was the 90s, kids. These were 90s textbooks. They don't exist like that anymore. And I can never remember the author or the title, but I do remember the story being that this clone is like, I'm more than just this clone, and trying to get free from this clone factory and live. I think it was a female protagonist, live her life. And so I think that is what I respect about Maddie and what she's been able to do to clone tropes and really redefine that she was more than just Jean Grey. And again, at the time when these stories were being published, it's all about the context and editorial conversations that were happening. You know, they thought that, okay, the clone is dead, but Jean has her memory, so it's like Jean is Madeline. But no, she is her own character, and she would come back during X-Men. Nate would recreate her, and she would be traumatized by the events of what happened, and she would
Yeah.
confront Jean in issue number 25, and she would be like, I'm my own person. By the way, so okay, that's point number one, that general statement.
Yeah.
Two, issue 25 of X-Men, where she looks at Jean and she goes, worried about your marriage right now, Jean, that me being back threatens your existence? Well, don't worry, sister. Been there, done that, and his little brother too. Praise Madeline for
Yes.
saying that line. Oh, love it so much. So
I've
that
done
would
your husband, I've done his little brother, and I've done the alternate reality son. My
and
alternate reality
they
son
all
with his
prefer
floppy
me
hair.
more. Yeah. So I think, again, her wittiness, her her ability to call out Jean for a lot of things, and how she's redefined the trope of clones. Number three is going to be very recent. I'm gonna say it's X-Men 97.
Yeah.
I think we see Madeline fully realized, and I think has brought her to a new generation of fans. Tragedy is part of a Madeline Pryor story. I don't want to take that away, from the character, because that's what makes the character, from a storytelling perspective, so incredibly precious to us fans. But that scene where she sees Cable and she realizes it's her son.
Your
Yeah,
eyes.
your eyes, you survived. I think it's so beautiful that Madeline loves her kid, and for decades she was written as this dismissive mother who wanted to sacrifice her baby, when in fact she loved her son very much. And we did get glimpses of that in the comics, especially during the era of the 12,
Yeah.
where Cable would meet up with Madeline. But these were just very lightly touched upon. In X-Men 97, we got to see that fully realized version of Madeline. um, we had Jordan D. White on the podcast a couple years ago, and he said something that was really odd to me, where you're like, well, Madeline was never popular until we killed her off in Hellions. And I was like, you know, I was kind of like, no, Madeline's always been popular. Like, what do you mean? Like, she's always had such a very vocal fan base. And that's why I love X-Men 97, because it's showcase the
Yes.
Madeline fandom. It's showcase that this is a character that's more than just a clone. So I I have no qualms. Listen, God Queen, White Phoenix, we pray to her, but that does not take away from Madeline's own right as a character. And I think there should always be a distinction between Jean and Madeline. Yes, Madeline's a clone, but Madeline is more than just a clone, and it's a meditation on being self-realized and individualism and rising above trauma. And I think that's something that you and I argued about maybe years ago when she was kind of coming back. I was saying that I don't want Madeline to be angry anymore. And you were saying, no, she's not angry anymore. Her story's being taken in this direction. But I think now there's no murkiness about it. Madeline
Yeah.
is, the ambassador of limbo. X-Men 97 really drew that line between Jean and Madeline. And I'm very happy for it. I'm sorry I ranted.
No,
Shockingly.
hello.
Shockingly.
We're entering
Shockingly.
2 hours of
I
ranting.
know.
So like it's not
Sorry. But
there's no need to apologize. It's lovely to hear you, so effusively talk about your love for Madeline versus Jean Grey, because yeah, they are two unique characters. And my love for Madeline is huge. I mean, she's behind me right now. So
Can I give a fourth? Can I give a
of
you're
course
like
you
you
can give a
stupid
four.
bitch. You're like a fourth. As you're talking, I'm like this. Um, Mutant X, Goblin Queen, Marvel.
Oh
No, Marvel Woman. Excuse me. I was gonna
yeah,
say Goblin Woman, Marvel Woman, Mutant X. And I did an Instagram live with someone who was here like, oh, I don't trust people if they like Mutant X, and you'll see my face. I don't know if the live is still up, but like I kind of went like this. I'm like, Mutant X is a fun book. That's
yeah,
it. I'm not. You're not going to take any really big literary nuggets from it, and that's a lesson
no,
I learned. This is a lesson I learned. Familia at home. Blink. I was going to say Mike. Blink taught me when we were arguing on AIM those years. You told me you need to chill and you
yeah,
need to love. Sometimes you just need to have fun. And Mutant X is a book that yes, we can poke at it. Yes, it's not so incredibly well written. However, it is a fun book. It is so much fun. And
absolutely.
Goblin Woman. I was gonna say Goblin Woman again. Marvel Woman is why I love the character as well. Fourth reason.
I'll accept that. Obviously, I love Mutant X, and I think, we spoke of the Malibu Comics Exiles being, a predecessor of the Exiles we eventually got in the Marvel Universe, but Mutant X is absolutely, something of a predecessor to Exiles as well, showing off different versions of characters that we wouldn't see in the 616. So, yeah, all the love for Madeline, all the love for Mutant X. No argument from me here.
Okay, well, on the subject of Mutant X and Madeline Pryor and his little brother too, Alex Summers is notoriously one of your favorite X characters, and I know why because you identify with the little brother aspect of his character,
Yes.
which I love.
Yes.
But listen, that's too much of an easy question. That's low-hanging fruit to ask why do you love Alex? I'm going to ask you to say one negative thing about Alex Summers, your beloved Alex Summers. Give
Not
a
my beloved.
negative give a negative opinion on him.
Okay,
It's so
okay.
shady. And again,
This
for the
is,
familia at home who may sound off in the comments or slide into our DMs, you love Alex Summers. I am trolling you in asking this.
oh yeah, this is a total troll question, but I think I have a pretty good answer, a diplomatic sort of answer. The one negative thing I think that kind of springs to mind just immediately is he's an inconsistent character. He is written very, very inconsistently. And like I always circle back to the best Alex is the capable leader from 90s X Factor or Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire. But at this point, I almost think he's been written more as kind of a self-doubting loser than he has a capable hero, and I really hate that. He is not a self-doubting loser, and dipping into that well again and again and again. And Mutant X, another example of him being a capable leader. So yeah, like dipping into the well of him being like full of self-doubt and not being able to live up to the Summers name. That's just I hate that. It's bullshit. It's lazy writing, in my opinion, to always feel like you have to go back to a trope that has been overcome many times in the pages of the comics. So maybe that's more of a read on the writers, but yeah, inconsistent characterization. And if I have to make it about Alex, is that he can be a self-doubting loser. That is something that I is negative about Alex Summers.
We talked about this in our X Factor review, so I don't want to become circular, but like I don't know what happened after Axis or during Axis that they just did such a sharp turn with the character, and no one, because we kind of saw that with Cyclops after the 12 when he was possessed by Apocalypse and sort of him going through it with New X-Men. But you see the journey for Cyclops through the Astonishing era, through Messiah Complex, etc. Why can't we get that same migration with Alex? I don't mind that for a period of time. He's self-doubting, especially
Yeah.
after Axis, but like at this point, he's been disfigured how many times already? Like how many times is he
Three?
self-doubting? Like, can we just progress the character somewhere else?
Yes.
And I agree. I think the editorial inconsistency is nauseating at this point. I hope let this X Factor run be the end of it.
It
Um,
won't be. I have no faith.
I do think the character's doom was and I like Remender, but I think Remender's era of Alex was a false promise of a golden age for Alex Summers, and as we've discussed, epitomized in that moment where he's giving that press conference and he's here like, don't call me the M word. My goodness, what a serious misfire! Not cool, not cool.
Yeah, because like it's very you can take that scene of him at a press conference where he's like, "No, I don't want to be a mutant," and compare that to Peter David's unveiling of the government X Factor team at a press conference where Alex is proud and capable and wants
Hmm.
to be there and is happy to be there. And like it just I cannot abide. I cannot abide. Final question for you.
Okay.
Why do you think you respond more to Marvel characters over DC or another publisher? Because like you do talk about love for, Stephanie Brown and a lot of indie comics, but I feel like those indie comics aren't they're usually not superhero comics. So why
Yeah.
do you, I guess more specifically, why do you respond more to Marvel superheroes than DC or others?
Yeah, I think it's a really great question because we grew up with when DC was having a golden age in the film industry with those
Yeah.
with the Batman with the Burton Batman films, and Batman was everywhere, and I had a little Catwoman watch and all that stuff. But
Don't write off Schumacher, okay? We are
oh,
in
listen,
2024. We can say proudly that we
I
love Batman Forever and Batman and Robin now.
I still have my Batman Forever cups. I love Batman and Robin while acknowledging the campiness and maybe some of the shortcomings. But I listen, I when did Batman and Robin come out? 1998.
Eight, I think.
Yeah. I was in Sanibel Island. They had one theater that summer. We spent the summer at Sanibel Island. I went maybe every other day and
Hell
watched that
yeah.
movie. I must have watched that movie like 6 times that summer. Um, but I think ultimately, I want to be thoughtful with this. I think it's kind of like a layered answer here, which where I think there's a lot of inconsistencies with how these characters are being done over at DC. I don't think
Oh
continuity
yeah.
matters as much for, and I'm not
No, they
trying,
reboot it every five
yeah,
years.
every 5 years there's a reboot. The characters are vastly different, and there's no familiarity with these characters. Like the Stephanie Brown that I love from that series is long gone, for
Yep.
example.
Yep.
Um, it's kind of hard to like bond with when you're getting to relearn something every couple years. Continuity does matter in these shared
Yeah.
universes, right? And I, of course, I love my indie comics. I love memoirs and the graphic novel, but they're one and dones. I think Marvel has such a rich shared history. There's never been a hard reboot. I mean, people can
Soft
argue
reboots here and there.
soft reboots. People can argue for Secret Wars to the Hickman one, but for the most part, everything is really consistent. Um, and I also think DC characters like Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman have this sort of god level mythology aspect for me growing up.
Yeah.
Um, they like Wonder Woman, Superman feel like gods to me
Literal
and
gods.
literal
Yeah.
gods, where I think with the X-Men in particular, I feel the allegory. I feel a sense of humanity when I'm reading them. I see themes that I've had to sort of go through in my life. I see them reflected in the X books, whether it's standing up to a bully, whether it's the allegory of the mutant, mutant metaphor. I feel very closely bonded with them. And again, it's the consistency and the champion for these characters. Again, going back to someone like Scott, seeing him for decades being possessed by Cyclops, by Apocalypse, and overcoming that and cheering him on and having that consistency. So I think that would be the gist of it. I'm sure if I wasn't on the painkiller, I can give a more analytical answer. But I think in broad strokes, it's just that they feel a bit more human to
Yeah.
me versus a DC, which I'm not saying this is an issue of poorly done characters, but rather they feel more like gods that I'm reading a book about mythology when I'm dealing with Wonder Woman and Clark and Clark.
Yeah, because even like a human character in like Batman in the
Yeah.
DC universe, like yeah, he doesn't have any powers and he's not a god, but he can still overcome things like having his back broken
Mhm.
or losing his money. He can still, somehow manage to be like this perfect, amazing superhero. So I agree. I think the old line from Stan Lee, Marvel is the world outside your window. I mean, that is just as apt now, 60 years later, as it was when he first said it back in the 60s. And that, for me, it says it all. Like, I don't even need to expand on that.
Yeah, and I don't want to like hate on like Gotham City or Metropolis because I love those fictional cities so much. I love
Yeah,
Gotham. But there is that aspect that these characters in the Marvel universe are really right outside your window. If you're in New York, if you're in LA or whatever story you're reading, when they did the 50 state initiative, it was so interesting to see which state got which characters. I
I
mean,
got terrible ones.
I
Texas was bad.
who did you get?
I know we got Rawhide Kid,
I remember
an
Rawhide.
Armadillo, uh, just very stereotypical, Texas is the country kind of heroes.
I wanted Alaska because, of course, Patsy Walker, Hellfire.
Ugh,
Oh, Hellfire, Hellcat. I'm like Hellfire, Hellcat. I
wow.
know. Gosh. God, I'm a fake Patsy Walker stan. Don't look at me.
Mm, mm.
But yeah, I think that would be the gist of it. And again, I don't ever want to take away from DC's
Yeah.
uniqueness, but there's a little bit more of that bond there.
I
Mm.
love DC. I love DC. Don't get me wrong. None of this is meant to be like fully shady. It's just we obviously respond more to the Marvel characters than DC. I mean, this isn't Power of Batman, so like it's pretty clear.
Bob. Okay. Well, on the subject of other comic book publishers, you have such a love for like the 90s comics, X-Men titles as well, but apart from that, you love other IPs during the 90s. Which are those favorite that you like?
Okay, well, my definitely number one with a bullet favorite 90s comic book that isn't X-Men is Wildcats. I mean, you
One
could
and
almost
only one. Yes.
like no, it's
Uh,
amazing. That theme, like insert that theme here. No,
Yeah,
I just
we will.
it could arguably you could say that it is because of the X-Men that I love Wildcats because they are such kind of an analog, the image analog to the X-Men. It has the Jim Lee art. The stories aren't nearly as good. The character depth isn't nearly as good, but there's just a vibe. They're so I know we overuse that word here, but it is. It's true. It's a vibe. They're so colorful. They're so bombastic. Like they had literal, like not just like a two-page like splash page, but it would like with fold outs, and you would wind up with like a five-panel or a five-page like single panel of like Warblade claws jumping out at a Daemonite, and it's just it was just so mind-blowing to me as a kid. It took what Jim Lee did with the X-Men and it turned the dial up to 1,000, and I loved that. And of course, it wouldn't be me if I didn't talk about the action figures. I mean, the Playmates action figures for Wildcats are just they hold up. Like, yeah, they're not superposable. There's definitely, some they could be made more modern, but they're beautiful sculpts. They really represent the characters. They come with all the accessories that you would want them to. So Wildcats is really number one. And number two, I mean, while I'm not the world's biggest Spawn fan, I am a massive Angela stan.
Ah,
Uh, I
yes.
She is one of my, I mean, now like you cannot imagine how my reaction in 2013 when they announced that Angela was coming to the Marvel Universe, I again, this is one of those, I mentioned, when Rachel Summers wasn't part of the Excalibur box set, that I had to get up, my face turned red, and I had to get up from my desk at work to go excuse myself. It's a very similar situation when they announced that Angela was going to be a part of the Marvel Universe, except the opposite. I was so excited that I couldn't focus and I had to like go sit in my car and like shake and cry a little bit. I just love her. She knows that Todd McFarlane is not exactly known for his character depth. And again, like it's the 90s. The 90s image comics were just a vibe. I mean, she had an incredible look. I mean, she's in, a metal space bikini with a giant staff going back and, hunting medieval spawn and just like she was capable, powerful, badass woman who was more of a nemesis to Spawn than any of Malbolgia's forces. Like I'm getting real into the Spawn universe here, but yeah, I mean Wildcats and Angela were just things that I really responded to and loved. And I didn't read any Savage Dragon comics in the
Oh,
90s, but I watched the animated series and I rewatched it recently and I love it. And I bought those action figures also from Playmates, also really beautiful sculpts, even if they're not like superposable. And I love Savage Dragon. So like that first wave of Image Comics is just,
mm.
it's fairly untouchable in my head canon. And we already covered Malibu Ultraverse. That would be another one on my list. Essentially, if you were a non-Marvel or DC company and you got at least one animated series on the air in the 90s, I love you. Like that's just how it is.
Look what's been propping up my laptop. I don't know how to explain this to someone. Look how beautiful and vibrant. Oh, right there with the Wildcats. How
Yeah,
fortuitous. Right there.
with
Um
the big three, yeah.
I it was such an era. Again, I think there's we talk about style over substance quite a bit. I think good style can never be underrated. I've been reading Eric Larson's Savage Dragon
So
recently.
good.
It's so good and it's fun and it's compelling. Witchblade, Gen 13, um, Top Cow, everything that was going on. I mean, there was so much good happening in the 90s with comics and the art there that had never before been seen, and it was beautifully rendered. So I'm there with you. Listen, I I would love just to spend an afternoon rewatching all of Savage Dragon, which was on USA. I
Yeah.
believe it was on the USA Network,
Yep.
and Wildcats. I would love just to have an afternoon with that and relive some of those moments because it was a vibe. It was an era, and there was a lot of groundbreaking stuff being done. And I don't think we some of that magic doesn't translate to today, sadly.
No, yeah, I think there are younger people that I work with. I mean, obviously, I work in an office full of comic stands, and there's younger people I work with and older people I work with, and neither of those segments understand why I'm so excitable about Image and Wildcats and even Rob Liefeld's stuff. It's yeah, what was it, Youngblood? I'm not a huge Youngblood fan, but like I'll still defend it because it's part of that vibe that I think you had to be there and you had to be a certain age. You had to be impressionable.
No, it's
To
fair. I mean, I think a lot of people like forget that part because, of course, if you're an adult now looking back on it, you're gonna be like, "Ah, what?" It's like you
Yeah.
had to be impressionable. Your brain was still forming, was cooking. You had to like make it. But yeah, Youngblood, I love quite a bit, and I'm glad that a lot of the younger audiences are getting some of these things adapted. Like Invincible, for example. I thought Invincible was a wonderful comic, excuse me, not 90s, but early aughts. Um, but I love that that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, you know that I have a long-standing feud with Robert Kirkman, so we'll
We're gonna
just
gloss
gloss
over
over my
that
thoughts of Invincible.
one. All right. Well, so we did open up some questions to the Familia, and we got quite a few that are really great. We'll power through them, but some of these questions are just too good not for us to answer. Um, And again, if you've been sticking with us when we said at the top of this episode, we got some trolling questions and they're here and we'll talk about them. But I'll kick us off with our first one from the Familia who submitted these questions. And the first one is, why is Storm better than Jean Grey?
Because she just is. No, it's for me, it's things like Joe Mad, Marrow ripping out her heart, the Mohawk, her being able to beat Cyclops in a leadership battle, even though she didn't have her mutant powers. It's like really defining things like that I would say for me. I know you could never say that Storm is actually better than Jean, but for me, those would be my reasons.
You are so wrong right now. You're so out of line because I can admit that Storm is a better IP than God Queen.
Great.
In terms of
Is
character,
that a compliment?
I think Storm appeals to a mass audience because why wouldn't you love Storm? I mean, she's this earth goddess who controls the weather. Everyone knows Storm. If you ask people about the X-Men, they'll be like Storm. She's her and Wolverine are the two characters people are going to talk about. I think the only note I would give about the Storm character in the comics in terms of history, I think she gets sidelined a lot in modern
Yes.
comics. And I think I was really excited when they made her Soul Regent, but then they quickly just pivoted from that. And I'm like, no, Soul Regent is a perfect
Yeah.
position to have the character, in the comics. So I think if there's ever any doubt of why Storm may not be better than God Queen, I think the only thing someone could ever argue is character history and moments. But I think in terms of an IP, there's no doubt that Storm ranks above Jean. I mean, people know her. They may know Phoenix, they may know Jean, but if you ask people, like, I don't want to say like the masses or like normal people, but like if you poll people, they're gonna know Storm, and that's why.
Yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that. Okay, so the next one, I mean, we're getting into some deep personal thoughts here. Shag, marry, kill the ex-boys. So who would you shag? Who would you marry? Who would you kill?
Okay, so this was something I was gonna say when you were asking me about DC. I don't historically find X characters
Oh my
attractive
God,
a
what?
lot. I'm not to say that I don't think they're attractive or I'm not like ooh, but like for me, like Superman does it for me. Like Christopher Reeve Superman does it. Burt Ward Robin does it for me. So when I'm thinking of like this question, I'm like, I will say the X character that I've long always liked is Cyclops. So
Yep.
I would marry Cyclops so I could shag Cyclops the rest of my life. So Cyclops would be there. A straight up shag would be Gambit. Like that's it. Like one and done. I don't need that toxic energy in my life because
No,
I'm equally as toxic as Gambit.
that
It
would
would just
be
no
a
no
mess.
bueno. Who would I kill? Who would I kill off forever? Beast. Beast. Super
Big
easy.
surprise.
Big surprise there. How about you?
Okay, so I would shag Havoc. As mentioned, he has a lot of baggage and he's very inconsistent, so I wouldn't want that forever, but I would love for him to slip on the Goblin Prince outfit and we have a night of passion. That would be great. That would be excellent.
That's fair.
Mary would be Angel because he's
Oh,
beautiful and he's rich.
get that Warren Worthington money.
I would not sign a prenup.
No, don't. You cannot sign with Warren. You cannot sign that prenup at all.
No, no. And then kill. Oh gosh. Well, you took Beast, so I'm going to Deadpool. I would kill
Mm,
Deadpool. I have
okay.
he's he would if he Deadpool were a real person, he would annoy the shit out of me. So
Even if he
Deadpool.
looked like Ryan Reynolds.
Listen, I have a lot of nice things to say about the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, but chief among them is the best parts of that movie are the parts that are not a Ryan Reynolds Deadpool movie. So, sorry, no.
You know what? I will say that like Nice Pool, I was kind of like, hey. Like
No.
it's that
See,
long flowing hair and Ryan Reynolds' beautiful face. Like, and I've never objectified Ryan Reynolds or Hugh Jackman until I saw their chemistry together. I was like, okay, I'm kind of into this.
I nice pool is like the number one thing I would exercise from that movie. I hate it. Mm-mm,
Fair
mm-mm. Keep
enough.
dog pool, exercise nice pool.
Okay, this is the trolling question I alluded to earlier, like 5 hours ago, that Rich had sent in. And he said, say five nice things about the Krakoan X Factor. To give the familia who probably doesn't know, we had such a massive fight about Krakoan era X Factor that led to us not podcasting together, not talking for like maybe, well, I don't want to say a year, but like for a significant amount of time.
It was like a season. It was like
A season.
spring.
Yeah, it was like a spring. We came together again when we did Cy Spurrier on the podcast, but
Yeah, yeah.
we certainly this Krakoan era X Factor destroyed our friendship in order for it to be resurrected.
Yeah, no, definitely. It definitely we had to go through our crucible in order to be resurrected better than before. So, I know what my answer to this question is, and that's the best Krakoan era book. Bam. That's it.
Right there.
That's my five nice things.
That is so Emma of you. That was so witty. Um, Obviously, I knew this question was coming, and I'm trying to think. I want to be thoughtful about this because I think I was not in the right frame of mind because Vic had died. I had lost all my work. I invested so much in these stories more than I probably should have. One, I think Leah Williams cares about the history of all these characters and
Yep.
resurface powers that were probably otherwise forgotten about. And I think
Rachel's
she
chrono skimming.
yeah, yeah, it was the first thing that came to mind. Two, I think that the team is a fan favorite amongst a lot of readers and makes people really passionate about the Krakoan era. And
Yep.
it's one of the more, beautiful moments. Three, I think there's this moment in Trial of Magneto where Quicksilver is having this meltdown because Wanda is dead, and you're like, she's my sister. She had suffered a lot of mental disease. I should have taken care of her. No one gets it. No one gets it. And North Star comes up to him and it's like, I get it,
Yeah.
and hugs him. And I'm like, oh, that is so beautiful.
Nobody ever puts those two characters together, and like, come
Never.
on, they both have a very similar power set, and they both deal with a twin sister that,
Yeah.
with mental health issues. Like, it is so clear that they would, I mean, they would either be besties or they would fucking hate each other. But get at least giving them, some interaction would be, isn't what important to me.
Yeah, and I think, I don't like Trial of Magneto at all. I think Leo
No.
Williams is a very capable writer, but this is going to lead into my fourth point, which is I think there was a lot of editorial intervention that Leah Williams has spoken about out there. And I think when we had her on the podcast a couple years ago, where she talked about how she had this original plan for the next arc of X Factor, which would have been Lorna being abducted by this group that's holding mutants, and Lorna would have been like, haha, gotcha. She wanted to purposely be captured and sort of be in this facility and free all the mutants there. I
Yeah.
thought that was brilliant. I think if you let it's kind of I don't know to what extent Exterminators was 100% hers or if she inherited. There's a lot out there. I don't know. We've never asked her. Um, but I think if you let Leah Williams be Leah Williams, I think you get a fully rounded story with these characters. I don't know if I can give up. What would be a
I
fifth?
have I have your fifth. I have
What's
your
my
fifth.
fifth? What's my fifth?
They made Eye-Boy an interesting character. Nobody gave a shit about Eye-Boy, but
Oh,
then
I
they
don't.
they like developed his powers, and like
Yeah,
he became an interesting character that of course nobody has done anything with since. So like I that would have been on my list if I didn't
I'm like
already
I'm like
love.
here. I'm like, I don't know about. Okay, how about this? Okay, I agree with iBoy. I agree that she did something interesting with him. But I want to give my proper fifth now that I've had a minute to think about it, which is Rachel walking Amazing Baby and Rachel feeling like a hipster, which by the way I would argue is the origin of the modern Rachel we have now, who's
Yeah.
queer in a relationship with Betsy. I don't think those characters work together necessarily, but I think Rachel being very hipster, being queer, I think that services the character quite a
Yeah.
bit. And I think if you look at her historically, this makes sense for modern Rachel. And it originated with Leah Williams. I just think of Rachel being like rolling her eyes with Amazing Baby and being like, what is it that you need right now? I think it's perfect.
Excellent. That's five. That's
That's
five.
five. There we go.
You did it. You did it. Rich will be so pleased, I hope. Okay. So next, and this one, oh God, this might be harder than we think.
I think we can pull it off. It's can you provide a comprehensive origin of Nightcrawler's parental retcons through the ages?
Well, I mean, we know that his parental, like the parental situation he has now is what Claremont always intended, which is Destiny is his birth mother and Mystique, rearranged, not just shapeshifted into a man, but rearranged her biology to, be able to be the father. So that is, that was always sort of implicit um, before, only recently confirmed. I think, we have Margalie Zardos, who was his adopted mother. I don't believe we always knew that she was his adoptive mother. I don't think there was ever any sort of implication that she was his birth mother. And then his, we know Azazel it was who Chuck Austin gave us as his father. Mystique still, Mystique has always been. It's been clear that she's been, a parent, but can't canonically mother. So yeah, Azazel as father, Mystique as mother. Did we? Was there a retconning of Azazel before what we have now? Is where I'm unclear.
I don't know. I mean, because he would eventually reunite with Azazel and all these Bamfs during the Amazing X-Men era. I don't think there was an official retcon until we got Cy Spurrier's X-Men
Okay.
Blue. I think that's the official hard point. Of course, there could be an innocuous statement here or there, but I think the official retcon came with Cy Spurrier. Um,
Okay.
where
Did I
we
miss anything?
so the only thing I'm going to add to that is that I believe originally before Destiny and Mystique, Claremont wanted to tie Nightcrawler to Nightmare because they kind of look
Mm-hmm.
similar editorially, but because Nightmare was a Doctor Strange villain, then he brought him to the X-Men, and then that's where he wanted Mystique to shapeshift into a man, impregnate Destiny. And it was such a kind of like it was, I don't want to say it was ever nebulous. I think there was, you know, I think there was always this idea with X-Men fans that it could be explained even after Lobdell kind of came in and did the whole Count Wagner situation, Mystique chucking the baby,
Yeah.
off of the waterfall. But it was an odd beat to retcon even that when we got the Chuck Austin story. And we love Chuck Austin very much. I know his run is very contentious, but he's been on the podcast. We like him. He's a really great guy. I don't necessarily like how they handled the retcon now because I like Mystique being a cold-hearted assassin holding that baby over a waterfall and
Yeah.
crying because
Yeah.
even this was too much for her. I think now that she's been secretly a good mother, but Xavier ruined it for her, even though she asked Xavier to wipe her memories, but somehow it's all Xavier's fault. Doesn't really
As
land well for
usual.
doesn't land well for me. But I listen as an X fan growing up in the '90s. Mystique and Destiny sort of creating Nightcrawler. That's not anything new. I don't, if you're going to have an outcry for it, I would say it's the execution of how it was done, not necessarily the lore behind it, because
Yeah.
that has always been there. In even though people want to argue, oh no, it doesn't matter what Claremont ever really intended, and the X-Men, before that he had wanted, Nightmare or whatever. It has been 40 years that was an intention of Chris Claremont. That's 40 years. I mean,
Yeah.
this is not new. This is if you've been an X-Men fan, this is not shocking.
No, not in the least. Not in the
Again, for
least.
me, it was the execution. She still needs to hold baby Nightcrawler over a waterfall and throw him off while crying. That's all I needed. I don't care how
Fair.
they
It's a
got
fair
there.
point.
That's just it's such a because again, it's such a beautiful. I'm gonna rant. Uh, such a beautiful part of Nightcrawler that he came from this awful person, was thrown and discarded, and grew up a man of faith. I love that. Love it so much. And that he has
Yeah.
a strong foundation of faith and can even forgive his despicable mother. I'm sorry, I'm done.
No, it's good. It's good. The people they want to know. This is why they ask these
Yeah.
questions.
All right. Unpopular X opinion of each other. So I guess this would be, what opinion of the X-Men do you hold that I don't like, and vice versa? Is that how you interpret the
Yeah, that's how
question?
I interpret it.
Okay. Hmm. I'm trying to think here. Okay. I, this is going to be hard because we just talked about it, and I think you do have a valid point in it. But I think you not liking Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force era, yeah, I that to me, I'm kind of like, what? It's so good. Okay, obviously we understand the misfirings with Havoc in Uncanny Avengers, but I think just looking at Uncanny X Force, I think Uncanny X Force is really good, and I think you're a dumb bitch for not liking it.
Great, great. And that's fine. Listen, the writing itself
Yeah.
and the character beats are good. Fine, fine. It's just that when visiting worlds like Age of Apocalypse, he just sort of jettisoned. He was the first X writer that I can think of. It's happened a fuck ton ever since him, but he was the first X writer that I can remember that just jettisoned canon without explanation. He just told a story he wanted to tell, didn't care how it fit. And, I'm the kind of person that continuity really matters. So if Age of Apocalypse Gambit is suddenly up and alive, I want to know why. I want to know how. And I certainly don't want him to die in the exact same way that he did the first time, because that's exactly what happened. Is he, sacrificed himself. So it just, whereas I can see why people love it. It did make some significant contributions to the lore. The way it ignored things as a continuity buff, as somebody who has read all those issues and really internalizes them, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. And as we mentioned earlier, I'm somebody who likes my comics to be fun, and Uncanny X-Force
Oh, it's
was
not fun.
just very
It's not fun.
dense and not fun. So it just wasn't exactly my cup of tea.
I will tell you, the kind of like just glossing over continuity. Um, Baby Charles from Age of Apocalypse, there is like this little throwaway line that he is no longer alive when they revisit Age of Apocalypse because he was crushed to death by it wasn't Blob, it was the Demonoc, like just like crushed him and I hate that because
Yeah.
Baby Charles represented so much in the original Age of Apocalypse storyline. He is the child of Rogue and Magneto, named after Xavier. That I think just to gloss over and kill him off panel is not very good. So
Not good.
look
It's not
look at
good.
me giving you some points there.
Thank you. You're not gonna like my unpopular.
No, I'm not ready for this.
Adam X sucks.
What the fuck is wrong with you? No. How
No
could
good. It's
why
NG. It's
why
NG. Nope.
why no, out of all the things I was prepared for you to say, I am genuinely shook right now. I thought you were
Good.
an Adam X fan too.
No, no. I've just been too nice to go there with you. I don't
Of
want to
all the
rock
things in
the
our
boat.
friendship that you have been too, this would be what you're too nice about?
Mm-hmm. Because I know you
Okay.
love him with his backwards hat and his like exploding blood. Like you just love him. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let you have that. But no, I'm afraid I agree with the denizens of the internet on this one and the haters in Wizard magazine. Yeah, no Adam X for me. So sorry. So
I
sorry. I was thrilled when he was not made the third Summers brother on panel.
Well, he's still a Summers brother by X-Men Legends.
Oh,
Um,
because that is complete. Everybody takes that to heart.
yeah, okay, how about this? I reread Legion Quest for the pod, and there is a scene with, when that question was still out there, where if he was a third Summers brother, where he gets his grandpa and they sit in the snow naked together, and his blood heats up. That is very strange. It is very strange storytelling. I think Adam X has suffered from strange storytelling that does
Yeah.
not make him appealing to other readers. So I'm shook. I want you to know I'm not okay. This has really redefined how I'm going to talk to you going forward, but that's fair. It's a fair point. It is a fair point.
Thank
Literally, you can
you.
see my vein protruding right
Yeah,
now.
it's
You're
like
you're
bulging
lucky
out
I'm on
there.
painkillers right now because
Thank
I'm like,
God.
I am stopping the Zoom right now and we are not talking anymore.
Kill it, kill it, kill
Kill
it.
it, kill it.
Who are some of your favorite guests? And you've done quite a few interviews without me, so you might have more to choose from than I do. So
Yeah.
who would you say?
Yeah, guest slash interview. That's a really good question. I kind of like everyone that we've had on the
Well,
pod
yeah.
because it's really nice to talk to people and get other people's perspective on it. And I've seen a review out there that was kind of like a negative review that as we kind of like grew as a familia that we kind of lost sight of having those, you know, the plethora of the X community on here and discovered the stories. So I love talking to people and understanding how they grew up, understanding X-Men, whether it was a creator or whether it's a cosplayer, a colorist, or just a fellow nerd. But I will say, like, in terms of interviews that, sort of hold like a special place in my heart, there's two of them in particular. One, Dan Vondrak, who did the X-Men Legends 2 and Marvel Ultimate Alliance. He was the director for it, and just sort of getting to understand the mechanics behind there because I love those games so much. Um, and then the other one would be the first interview we ever did together, which was with the Generation X
Yeah.
cast, and we did this reunion and us sort of going back and forth. It really was our friendship and sort of being able to do this, and we were like what, 2 episodes in.
I don't think
And
we'd even aired an episode at that point.
no, and I really enjoyed sitting down there and talking to Heather and Randall. It was lovely and it was fun and I got to do it with you and we were in lockdown. So it's no no one interview is better than the other, no one guest is better than the other, but for that reason I think I'd lean into that one because I have a lot of sentimentality for it. And again, during that era, we were so intense because we were going through so much. I wish I could go back and tell myself like, chill, just have fun with your friend and do this interview. And I
Yeah.
think that was before things got too intense with us. I think that was a very fun morning.
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna have two, I think, and that was gonna be one of them. Heather and Randall agreeing to be interviewed by us before we had even put anything out there was just like mind blowing to me. I always loved them anyways, because Generation X TV movie is one of the superior X films. So that was, of course, very special. But then the other one that springs to mind, and I don't know, I don't. Yeah, I guess I have some specifics about it, is Larry Houston. That was also very early on. And of course, the Leewalds were great. But what I really loved about our interview with Larry is he came into it as an X-Men fan. He came into it as someone who knew the lore, who knew the characters, who, had as much love for them as we the fans do because he is a fan. So I really loved that interview. I feel like it was really cool getting to talk to someone of a generation who also loved the X-Men. He was probably the generation ahead of ours, but then had such a massive impact on the fandom for our generation. And every generation to follow. And of course, you asking him whether that was Madeline Pryor that was seen in Cable's mind, and of course now knowing that that was a plot thread for Bo DeMaio to pick up on for X-Men 97. It's just that was a really mind-blowing special interview for me.
Well, I also think, and I don't like to pat ourselves on the back or blow our own whistle here, but we were among the first to really sit down with him and ask very thorough questions. And
We are nothing if not thorough.
I believe Ryan Tink said this when we interviewed him, where he was
Another
here
good
like
one.
another great one. There's no disrespect, but I think why you're pulling on the Larry Houston one was because we did our it was a very thorough outline. We had lots of questions. These questions had not been answered before. We were in lockdown. There were no cons were not happening.
Yeah.
There weren't a zillion other like shows, and X-Men 97 wasn't even announced. And
Yeah.
we asked those tough questions anywhere from Pride of the X-Men to the end of the series. So I think that interview in particular was really great because we prioritized the material and we were very thorough with it. And
Yeah.
again, I think you were magnificent in it. And I think our outline was wonderful. And I get why that comes to mind for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Shout out to Larry. We love Larry. I mean, anybody who is going to say that the one regret he has is not having more Havoc on the animated series, that he's we're all good with that answer.
Have you ever written any fan fiction? And if so, who's generally the main character?
I mean, this is a really easy question for me to answer because my answer is no. I have never written any fan fiction. I sort of touched on it earlier. I don't have a lot of interest in writing these characters, just because of the pressure that would come with it. Even pressure that I would put on myself, even if nobody else was ever going to read it. I revere them too much to want to make my own contributions to it. So no, I've never written any fan fiction.
I've never written any fan fiction either, but a version of fan fiction, The Sims, back in like the year 2001, I downloaded the skins. You can get the X-Men skins, and
Yeah,
I would have them all live in a mansion, and I would put Cannonball and Nate Gray together. So
perfect. The
that's a
floppy
version.
hair.
That is a version of fan fiction, maybe. So my
Sure,
and
sure,
Nate Gray. Sure.
sure, 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 sure.
Sure.
Okay, so the next is 6 characters to build your own team. Despite never writing fan fiction, this is something that I have considered before. I have drafted X teams my entire life, and I think the one that I am currently happy with is big surprise, my holy trinity, Dazzler, Emma, and Havoc.
Hmm.
Dazzler and Havoc are going to be our energy projectors. Emma is going to be our telepath. Put Monet on the team as my fourth. She's going to be my powerhouse character. Then I'm going to have Richter and I'm going to have Shatterstar. Shatterstar is going to fill the sort of Wolverine slice and dice role. And then Richter is just sort of the wild card character, just the one that I want to see Richter and Shatterstar make out. So that's why Richter is there. Those are my 6.
I think mine would be the Morrison team with Storm or, rotating M as well. I think M would have fit perfectly into the Morrison team. So that's kind of written by Morrison, to be very clear. I would
Please.
love that.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's probably what my team up would be. I mean, listen, I too, I can think of wanting Nate Gray, Extreme, all on a team. But I think just if a book that I would be very interested if it was announced, it would be, Jean, Cyclops, Emma, Beast, Wolverine, whether it's Laura or Logan, and then, the 6 being Storm and have M kind of floating around there. I think that's 7, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You
No.
can swap out
Sure.
Emma's. Emma could be on vacay, and Emma would totally be like, okay, I have to go somewhere, but my substitute is going to be M, and M just walks in and is even more sassy than Emma and more witty than Emma. And by
I
the
would
way,
love.
their power set's kind of like perspective wise, telepath and Diamond and Monet having super strength and telepathy. That kind of
And the ruby
yeah,
penance form.
yeah. I think yeah, you're right. Ruby Penance, like yeah, you can swap them out, and it would be kind of fun to see the
Yeah.
difference in those characters.
And Monet was, of course, trained by Emma and taught by Emma. So she's
Precisely that.
somebody who I think would honestly probably stand up for Emma if somebody was talking shit.
And the erasure of the Generation X team being proteges of Emma, given, more towards credits or giving more credit to the Cuckoos, I think is kind of one of those things I'd like to see addressed. Like Emma has
For
had
sure.
so many more students, not just the Cuckoos.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
All right.
So the next question we have is our dream team up. And I don't have like a quick answer to this one. What do you?
You know what? I would love to see a revisiting of Marrow and Spider-Man. I've just reread those issues. There is a one shot out there that I never read, but it's Marrow and Spider-Man, and I'm looking for it on online. I was like online. I'm looking for it at my local comic book stores. I would love to see them revisit it. I think the issue that we see them in Uncanny X-Men together, I think there's a lot to unpack there. I would love to see that kind of come back. So I would say Marrow and Spider-Man revisit.
I think for me, and that's a good answer, by the way.
Mm.
I think for me, I this just came to me. This is totally random. I might have like a better answer later, but I would kind of like to see Pixie and Magic because
Oh,
if
yeah.
you remember,
Yeah.
Pixie got her soul dagger and her teleportation
Yep.
abilities in the Search for Magic arc, in or Quest for Magic arc in New X-Men. But then there's never been any, and apparently that wasn't even the real magic. That's still a little fuzzy to me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I would like to see those two characters have some like meaningful panel time together and maybe Magic train Pixie a little. And I think a lot of writers, when and if Pixie ever gets used, they just kind of write her as if teleportation is like her mutant power, and it isn't. It's a spell. So I would like to see Pixie lean more into that supernatural limbo side of things and team up with Ileana. I think that'd be
That's
interesting.
that's fabulous. Yes. Another one that occurred to me while you were talking, because I wasn't paying attention.
Of course, what else is new?
Bishop and Deathbird. I think there's a lot of
Bring
a
them
lot to
back.
unpack there. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. We gotta get Aaliyah Bishop into the mix.
Oh, I love Aaliyah Bishop. Talk about a character that works so well. Alternate future. Bring her to the present. Bring Aaliyah Bishop to the present from X-Men the End.
Sure.
Okay. Do you agree with the Scott Logan Jean throuple?
Yes, easy. Yes, I loved that. I thought that was like one of the things coming out of, Hoxpox that I was the most excited to see expanded on, and one of the reasons why I was so disappointed with the books that we got.
Yeah.
It did not follow up on any of the plot threads that I wanted them to the most.
We talked about this when it was like coming out. The X-Men were weird again, and weird in a good way that we didn't really know what was going on. There were a lot of innuendos, and Hickman had a good grasp on that. I remember reading that panel when Scott is like hugging both Logan and Jean. No, it's Wolverine hugging both Logan and Jean, or
Hmm.
Wolverine hugging both Scott and Jean. And we were like, oh, what's going on there? And then the adjoining rooms on the Summers, family home on the blue area of the moon. So I I don't know if I personally would have ever made the call to make them a throuple and think it would work, but given what we were given, I liked it. I thought it was appetizing, and I think now that kind of erasure, that oh what there was never really anything there. I'm like really like just you don't have to address it, just move on, and it could be something that 30 years from now, a whole new set of ex readers can ruminate on
Yeah,
and get addressed. But I was okay. I was fine. I did not want to choose it. I was fine with it.
sure. Yeah, fair. Okay, so the next question is, do you think, and I'm assuming we're talking Fox prequel
Hmm.
cast, will return to the MCU? I don't think so. I
No.
don't see any need to. If we're going for the pure nostalgia of it, you know, having it be Hugh Jackman, Halle Berry, Famke, James Marsden, Patrick Stewart, you know, Kelsey Grammer, you know, I feel like those versions of the characters people have more nostalgia for. Even if I do like the prequel movies and I like a lot of the prequel cast, if I'm going to see Fox X-Men show up in Secret Wars, I want it to be the OGs from, you know, 24 years ago.
Yeah, I don't mind like a cameo from, J-Law or something, although it needs to be Rebecca
No.
Romaine. It needs to be Rebecca Romaine, but like
Yes.
if you do get multiple Mystiques, I don't mind a cameo here and there. Obviously, James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender. I thought Sophie Turner did a great job. I would, of course, always love to see them again, but I don't know if they'll necessarily return, and I don't know if we need them to return. If they're going to bring, like, I'm assuming the question also alludes to the fact that, like, we're post Secret Wars and the X-Men are being introduced in the MCU. Would they bring McAvoy back, Fassbender? I don't know. I wouldn't mind it, but I want a hard reboot of the X-Men. Fresh
Yes.
act. Let's say goodbye to the Fox universe one more time, but I'm ready for fresh blood
Yep.
in the
That's
MCU.
exactly same. Same.
Wolverine is the most popular X character. Why do people hate that?
For me, like I don't hate Wolverine as a character. I think he's interesting, but for those of us who were reading the X books and the aughts in particular, he was a new X-Men. He was an adjectiveless X-Men. He was showing up in Uncanny X-Men. Then he became an Avenger and he had three concurrent, you know, Savage Wolverine, Wolverine Origins, Wolverine. Like there was just so much Wolverine happening. And, you know, take it back to the 90s, every wave of Toy Biz X-Men figures had to have at least one Wolverine, if not two. So it just, for our generation, I think he was just so overexposed that, and plus the Hugh Jackman Wolverine, he's the you know whatever, what do they call him in Deadpool and Wolverine? He's the whatever character, the linchpin character. That's not what they called him, but
Oh, I was like, wait, what are you talking about here? He's the oh gosh, now I'm forgetting. It's like the
right,
focal character. He's the
yeah,
anchor
the
character
anchor
that
character,
that
and
the
like
universe can't survive without him.
right. And I think that, you know, the movies, characters like Cyclops and Storm suffered because there was too much attention on Wolverine.
Hmm.
You know, X-Men lineups in the aughts in the 90s became boring because there was too much Wolverine. Yeah, I think it's just overexposure. I don't think people hate Wolverine. I think for me, I understand his importance to the canon and the franchise, and I'm grateful for him because the X-Men are so much more popular for him being included. But it's just it stifles other characters and the creativity of mutant stories when Wolverine is just perennially there and doing whatever for no good reason.
Yeah, I listen 100% echoing those sentiments. And I remember in the 90s, there was such an oversaturation of Wolverine. I
Yeah.
understand, obviously, now as an adult, I get it. That character, that IP is doing well with the masses. Pump him out, get all that money. And I do find him really compelling. I like his character, but I think I was in Orlando when I was like a kid, and this must have been like fifth grade, and I really wanted um this card of Gene, and there was a Wolverine card next to him, and I asked for the Gene card, and the comic book seller, who was like on the phone, he was like on a cordless phone, just saying, "Oh, this kid is asking me for the Jean Grey card." I thought everyone liked Wolverine, and I remember like so. That's sort of where, if I had resentments of like his overexposure, would have been that moment. It's like, no, I want Gene and unique characters like Wolverine to carry a franchise. I never want to take that away from the character. But for exactly what you just said, it was
Yeah.
frustrating to be a fan because there was this overexposure.
Yeah, for sure.
Cyclops and Emma is better than Cyclops and Jean, right?
I mean, we kind of covered this when we were talking about gushing about Morrison earlier. Yes, I absolutely think Cyclops and Emma is better than Cyclops and Jean because if you think about it, you know, Cyclops and Jean, that is just the teen dream, the teen ideal. Like he was in love, they were in love with each other from youth, and I think that kind of stifled the characters and put them in a bit of a holding pattern as far as their relationship. Their relationship, it just kind of became, well, this is just what it is. Cyclops and Jean are a couple. They're just together. There was no motivating reason necessarily, in the 90s for them to be together or even get married. Whereas I think the pairing with Cyclops and Emma made Cyclops and Emma both more interesting, but also made Jean interesting in the sense that, from the White Hot Room, she understood that Cyclops and Emma needed to be together to help Cyclops grow into the leader that the mutant race was going to need. And I think we got a good decade plus of really interesting stories out of Cyclops and Emma. I don't think that there was anyone that I would say that I didn't love or at least enjoy with the two of them as co-leads of the X-Men. And I think that that is also a really important point is that they were co-leads of the X-Men, whereas Jean, despite all of her powers, she was not a leader of the X-Men. She was not the headmistress of the Xavier Academy. So Scott and Emma were more of a genuine partnership with aligned goals, save the mutant race, teach these kids, keep them safe.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you on that. And I know that's controversial as a crazy Gene stan, but I think Scott and Emma work very well as a couple. And I like our God Queen in the universe, part of the universe,
Yeah,
intervening only in the most dire of situations. I think that's where the Jean character really thrives and you see her compassion. I think the hallmark of Jean is that she is a character that evolves and that
yeah,
she ascends into godhood. And that's something very beautiful and very powerful. So that's quite controversial. I've gotten into debates with Gene Stan, all lovingly, of course. But I think Jean works very well as a cosmic entity versus being, I don't need to see her and Scott, going through relationship woes anymore. I think Morrison even said this, that their relationship was epitomized when they did that death march on the moon. And how do
yeah,
you as a couple bounce back from that death march?
right. I,
That's a fair question,
yeah.
fair
And I
question.
think for me, I don't know why that would be so controversial because why would you want a god queen like Jean to be defined by her relationship? Like you wouldn't. So full respect for the Jean stands who really love the Scott and Jean relationship. I personally prefer both of those characters to not be defined by their relationship because I just feel like that's like a default mode for them.
Mm,
Okay,
agreed.
so we mentioned it in our last answer here. I'm going to throw this one exclusively to you.
Mm,
I'm not going to answer this one. Explain the White Hot Room.
Well, the White Hot Room first came up in Morrison's new X-Men in Here Comes Tomorrow after Jean amputates the future and she ascends into the White Hot Room. We've obviously got hints throughout the series that there was something, you know, else out there and Quentin had ascended into the White Hot Room, and so we didn't really have a lot of questions about it. But that's the first time that White Hot Room was named, and it's where phoenixes go when they ascend to a higher state of being. It is located within the M-Cron crystal, and I think now we can look back in like X-Men Classic number, was it number 8? Oh gosh, wherever they explain what happened with Jean in the space shuttle and the Phoenix came to her, the world around them goes white. Jean was in the White Hot Room there. So the White Hot Room is just this higher state of being for Phoenixes. It has since been retconned, especially in the House of X era, Fall of X, that it's a safe haven for mutants, and mutants can go into the White Hot Room and they're reborn. So
Sure.
I don't. Here's a hot take. I don't think it's been fully realized by the writers in the Fall of X era. It's not a jab. I just think it's very nebulous. But the mutants do end up there after the Hellfire Gala massacre. Somehow Jean could be killed in the White Hot Room. But from there, she could also be reborn, and then she can go into the past and impregnate um, Mama Baby Spalding's mom
Sure.
to conceive Hope. It's very jumbled there, but let's sum it up with the White Hot Room is a nexus point that was originally exclusive just to the Phoenixes. Now it seems to be a spot for all of mutant kind
Yeah.
to go to. Do you
See,
think that's
that's why
fair?
you're the one. That's why you're the right one to answer this question.
All right, we're in our home stretch here. Home stretch. Which is your favorite male and female X-Men, and who is your dream cast for them?
Okay. Favorite male is Havoc. For the purpose of this question, I'm gonna go with Dazzler as my favorite female, just because I have an answer for that, whereas I don't have any idea who I would want to play Jean at this point. I honestly don't know that I have anyone that in mind for Havoc either. As long as they're, a talented, handsome, blonde actor that I could lust after, I'm happy with anyone. Uh, so for Dazzler, though, if this was 20 years ago, Kylie Minogue would be
Oh, she would be
just,
perfect. Yeah.
she would absolutely be my answer. It's not 25 years ago, so in the year of our Lord 2024, I think for Dazzler, I'm gonna have to go with Sabrina Carpenter.
Oh,
Uh, she is an it girl now. She's
I love
beautiful.
that. Oh, that is
She
perfect casting.
Yeah, she has acting experience, so it wouldn't just be, Taylor Swift walking on a set looking like Dazzler and doing a piss poor job playing her. It would be somebody who has actual acting experience, who is also a modern pop star, currently charting #1 on the Billboard charts, have that, as a feather in their cap to play this character who I want to be, a very popular pop star in the mutant universe. So Sabrina Carpenter is my choice for Dazzler.
My favorites are obviously Gina and Nate. And for Nate, I would want Timothy Chalamet, just someone who kind of has this wayward, dreamy, angsty persona while
Floppy
still
hair.
floppy hair, while still being very youthful. So as of right now, I think and take the character seriously. I think
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to get at. And give us that hero's journey. So that would be my cast for Nate. For Gene, I just saw this horror movie the other day called Night Shift, and Phoebe Tonkin is in it. I think she would be a wonderful Jean. I think she kind of balances this light and darkness within the character she played in that movie. So,
Looking her
I
up.
think yeah, look her up. She's cool. She was a really great actor, and I appreciated her quite a bit. So
Yeah.
she would be my take for Jean.
I can see it. I can see it. I approve. She can play Madeline.
Okay. Who is the most overrated but insanely popular X-Men team
Uncanny
member?
X-Force. It's Uncanny
Oh,
X-Force
oh,
for me.
X-Men team. Oh, insanely popular X-Men team. I was thinking of the character. Oh, that's fair.
Uncanny X-Force. Nope, that's
Uncanny
for me.
X-Force. Wow, I can't think of which one's overrated? Oh, Jesus. Oh my God. I'm trying to think of a team that I think is overrated. I don't know. I'm like you're trying to think.
Cop out.
No, oh gosh. I'm going through the catalog in my head. Oh God, I just don't want to get hate. I do have an answer, but I don't want to
Come
get
on,
hate for
out
it.
with it. Out with
Okay.
it.
Okay. I think the giant size X-Men, although groundbreaking, I find a little overrated. I think you had to be a reader at the time to get that. I much prefer once we got into the Australian Outback era X-Men, the Blue Gold team, the giant size I have gone through really quickly. This is not to say that they're not important, that they were not groundbreaking. But for me personally, I can't go through those stories without being like, okay. And I've had to read quite a few because I've been on other podcasts where we revisited a lot of
Yeah.
these issues. It's kind of like, and I say this even knowing that this is the era that we also got, the Phoenix Saga and Dark Phoenix Saga, and I love those stories very much. but getting through it, I'm like, okay, okay, okay. So
Yeah. I see where you're coming from with that. They're obviously one of the most important X-Men teams, if not the most important X-Men team of all time, because they saved the franchise,
they saved
and got
them. They're
and
very
got it
important.
back in, publication with original stories for the first time in 5 years. But for me personally, I can agree with that. Because I don't think that the team dynamics were particularly interesting until after Jean died, Kitty Pryde came in,
Agreed.
there was, Rogue came in, and the team started to evolve, that I really started to respond to it more. So fair. I think that's fair.
Thank you. And I did this episode solo about rumored upcoming Marvel Legends, and I said I didn't want the classic Banshee. I wanted more of the Generation X Banshee. And the amount of anger I got for that. I mean, in comments and DMs and emails, I was just like, "Oh my gosh, so that's why I'm hesitant to say that because my gosh." Anyways, okay. This next question is for you, which is Flink. How was your quest for Mint original? How is your quest going for Mint original Toy Biz figures? And this comes from friend of the podcast, Art of Lucas.
Oh, okay. Hi, Lucas.
We love
Okay,
Lucas. We stand Art of
so
Lucas.
yeah, we do. We absolutely do. It's pretty good, actually. I wish that I had them with me on display behind. I actually have quite a few now, that I got certified, and by AFA, the action figure. I don't know. I don't know what AFA stands for, but I got them
Neither do I.
certified. And they are all encapsulated in UV-proof acrylic, and I have the first series Storm, the first series Cyclops, the first series Nightcrawler, the first series Juggernaut, the first series Apocalypse, second series Gambit, second series Magneto, second series Iceman, the color changing one,
Mm,
second series Banshee. I have Rogue. I have Phoenix. Of course, I had to get all the ladies.
mm.
And I have Mr. Sinister.
You're Mr. Sinister.
Yes, yes. With light up eyes and chest, or whatever the hell commercial back in the day used to say. And I have Pink Cannonball and the first Cable from the X-Force spinoff wave.
Oh, I'm
And
so
yeah,
jealous you have that.
and I think none of them I would necessarily. I think the highest grade I have on them is an 85. So none of them are like stellar, incredible condition. But I am happy to have them. I wanted to do this to encapsulate these figures, because after buying or receiving, as an anniversary present from my husband for our first anniversary, some certified Star Wars action figures, and I just from the original. And I just thought it was so cool, the preservation aspect of it. I want these toys to be preserved as pristine as possible for future generations. To put them in a museum somewhere. They're museum quality. They're just as good as any piece of art. Yeah, no, I also did it. I don't have any of the X-Men with me, but to circle back, I did do it with an Angela figure,
Look at
that's
that.
signed by Todd
Oh,
McFarlane and Neil
oh,
Gaiman here, her co-creators. It's just they might not be, incredibly valuable. They're actually really common, all of these figures, but it's for me. I just want to, respect the history and keep them safe.
God, that's beautiful. I'm not really jealous of a lot of things, but I'm jealous of that. Um, because that is, I mean, you have a relic right there. Like Todd
Oh yeah.
McFarlane signing that and oh, those original figures. Oh, Spawn figures. Absolutely beautiful. I don't know if I told you this, but we have here some original Mint in Cards figures as well because when we were after Jeff's dad died, we went to his mom's house and we were kind of clearing out the garage and we found like this trunk where Jeff had these pristine original figures
Oh
packaged.
wow.
So now they're upstairs. I'll show them to you later.
Send them to the AFA. Get them graded and encapsulated and protect them forever.
All right, we're going to talk about that because I have no idea how to do that. All right, bring us home with our last question.
I mean, is this even a question? Because I think I know both of our answers. Do you want Nate Gray back?
Yes. 100%. Why would you ask such a question? Why would anyone ask such a question? We want Nate back, bring back our God King.
Our God Twink.
Our God
I
Twink. Yeah,
listen.
I don't want Jesus Nate. I
Right.
want I want Twinkie Nate back.
I want it to be exactly what they have done recently with Beast. I want them to go back in time and or whatever the Nate that reconstitutes. I want him to be pre Age of X-Man. I don't want any of that baggage. I don't want him to be responsible for any of that nonsense. That was really a disappointing story arc. Did Nate no justice. And like I said, it saddled him with a lot of bullshit. So yeah, I would want it to be when this Nate reconstitutes, it's going to be a version that didn't do all of that shit.
Yeah, he's currently now in the Age of X-Men universe with a figment of his imagination, Magneto. I think let's just get him out there. Let's get him back to basics. I like him being an angsty, young man who can't control his powers. That's sort of where lusting for for Maddie and wanting to go home. That's how I want. Obviously, the Maddie thing won't work, but I think bring him back. There's always so much hate out there for characters like Nate and apparently Adam X. But I think if you can have a writer that takes these characters seriously and tells a compelling story, you can make them fan favorites again. And he had a very long series. It
Yeah,
sold for
75 issues.
yeah, it sold for years. So um bring him back, give the character justice. We're
Bring back
done.
our Nate.
We are done. Praise White Phoenix. This is a 3-hour episode. We'll figure out how we're gonna air this.
Yeah, this is gonna take some finessing because wow, we can talk. Big surprise.
uh Big surprise. Okay, can I ask you a question though? What do we
Yes.
have upcoming in maybe like a couple weeks that we're like really excited that I think we can announce, right? We
Yeah,
can
I
announce
think
it. Yeah.
so. I think
Okay.
so. Yes, us and our husbands will be traveling to the X Mansion. It
Yeah.
is the Airbnb experience that I'm sure a lot of you have seen that they did to cross promote X-Men 97. It's full of cell shaded rooms. It's got a
Mm.
Cerebro in the war room. It's got a danger room, Jubilee's bedroom, etc., etc. We were fortunate enough to receive an invite to go, and we're going to be doing that in mid to late September.
That was all you, I have to say, because I was like, I don't want to put in for this. It's so much work. And you're like, I'll do it. Hold my beer. And literally, you got it. And we're super excited for it. We're going to go there. It is not overnight, which we thought was overnight.
No, yeah, we're gonna. It's
That
very
was too good to be
specific.
true. It was too good to be true.
It was very specific. It's train at the X Mansion, not stay at the X Mansion. So fair, it's fine. I'm not going to get to sleep in the bed where Wolverine pined over Jean Grey with the photo of Cyclops and her, the iconic meme photo. But maybe we can at least recreate that photo.
Yeah, it is curious to me. It is weird to me that they wouldn't, let you stay the night because it's Airbnb. And I don't, admittedly, I don't know too much about it. I only know what has been, glimpsed on social media. But like, do you actually have to meet up with someone? Are they going to walk
Yes.
you? Like, is it going to be like Jubilee air quotes or New Mutant air quotes, and they're going to teach you how to be an X-Man? Is it like that fully
I
immersive?
think so. I think it's some sort of. I don't think it's like I don't think it's somebody LARPing as an X-Men character, but I think there is a Xavier Institute staff that will be walking us through it. And actually, I mean, I haven't told you this part. We're not. I don't think we're planning to take the train there, but regardless, we meet them at the train station, and we'll be ferried to the X Mansion in the X van.
Stop it. That's amazing. Again, I don't know anything other than like I've seen on social media and like people have, rightfully so, focus in specifically on them and their
Yeah.
content. So I don't know about the fully immersive experience. Anyways, we're gonna discover it. We're gonna talk all about it. We're gonna have so much fun. And
Oh,
thank you for putting
yes.
that in. And you're gonna be coming to New York. We'll take the train in. So more content to come.
Oh, yes. There will always be more content to come with us. I've been enjoying being back and, more.
3 hours. 3 hours. We are done, Familia. Go take a bathroom break because we're done.
Literally. Thanks for tuning in.